Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and it's time for another How We Felt About. Tonight, we're doing the Joker sequel, Joker Folie, Deux. And look, I have a panel once again. Tonight I've got Connor with me, and I've got Robert Wild. I don't know why I didn't use Connor's last name. Connor's last name for Geekvolution Trivia is Nielsen, like the ratings. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being on the program once again. Guys, we live in a society. No, we live in a baffling future now. We live in a world that I could not have imagined. And I say this all the time with superhero movies. But we're now in a place where there are 4 live-action movies that released in the theater that include Harley Quinn. Like, already, like, that has happened now. And played by 2 different actresses. It's very strange. There's this bizarre, like, Harley Quinn trilogy now. And only one of them is any good. And she's not even anything like as featured as she is in the other 2. And then there's this movie, which we'll get into. And I want us to all do our level best to be completely poker-faced, if at all possible. I mean, it is Joker after all. Let's wait and see where the Jokers pop up in the deck, shall we? But yeah, this is gonna be kind of a strange animal. This is a movie that, in some ways, was begged for, and in other ways, nobody asked for, right? Because it's a movie that the first film, somehow 5 years ago now, because this feels like, like a year or 2 ago to me. But I'm like that with everything just before COVID. Where to me, COVID was like last Tuesday, and now we're 4 years out from the 3 years out from that. But yeah, so that movie was supposed to be a standalone thing, a smaller, by big budget superhero movie standards, a tiny $60 million movie that caught wildfire and was shocking that it did as well as it did. It made $1 billion, and so there weren't supposed to be any more. But immediately you had fans of this kind of clamoring for more because it's a Joker origin. So it's we would love to see this character continue, take on Batman someday, all of that. And I think a lot of people would not have expected to ever see that happen, but I think there was a little bit of kind of, fantasy, which is kind of the theme of this movie, but there's kind of this fantasy that people had of, wouldn't it be cool to get to see the guy that we see, Arthur, almost said Arthur Dent, hilarious, because that's Hitchhiker, but Arthur Fleck from the first movie, transform into at the end, like what would that guy be, through a whole sequel. And then fast forward 5 years later, and we finally get that sequel, and it kind of now feels like nobody cares anymore. As evidenced by the box office, and obviously we're going to review the movie, but I kind of want to start with, and I'll open this to you guys before we even go to a synopsis. Why do you think this movie is bombing the way it is? And how do you account for the weird kind of discrepancy of the insane number of views the initial trailer got, which broke Warner Brothers' record apparently, to now nobody seems interested? Because at first what I thought was going on was it's kind of too late, the novelty's worn off. A lot of people feel the way I do, because I keep talking to people that have this, where I liked it fine in the theater, and then on repeat viewings it's not holding up, and now it's kind of feeling more pretentious, and it was kind of just a thing for the moment, and it's not really going to have the legacy we thought maybe it would initially. And then the trailer for the sequel dropped, and it did huge numbers online, but now nobody cares. And it can't just be word of mouth, because we're talking about opening weekend. And, it's not reviewing well, but it also didn't get pre-showings. So, Connor, what do you think is going on with this?
Look, I got to be honest, I don't know. It is a surprise to me. I remember we first heard, the sequel announced. So they had already, written it, and it was done pre-production. I remember it was June of 2022. I was listening to a Captain Logan show when I was on my way to a friend's wedding. When I was,
hey, that's
listening
me.
to you guys. Yeah, when I was listening to your guys' you and DJ were talking about it. I think Dan was even on that for whatever reason. But this is like
I
around
mean,
like the
we
same
like that
time
guy.
that
He shows up here or there, you know.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, even if he doesn't have feelings, so and it's a thing where like I remember thinking, all right, here we go again. Like it's gonna be like Joker mania. The old discourse is gonna kick its way back up into high gear, and it's gonna be a really annoying few months on the internet when it finally comes out because like the first movie, I figured the discourse around the second movie would have little to nothing to do with the actual movie and more about the cultural ramifications or whatever of the movie. And so, like, here we go. And then when that first trailer dropped, exactly what I thought would happen was happening. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone watched it, and then people who don't watch movies were like, "Wow, the shot at the end of that trailer! How did they even do it?" And it's like, even though they don't know that computer generated imagery is a thing that exists, like wow, like, and I'm like, you know what though, trailer's pretty good. I thought the trailer looked pretty good. I like the idea of them doing like a musical, and I was actually kind of on board, even though I think the first movies at that time I was like, oh, this fine, like I enjoy it, I don't love it, I don't hate it, it is what it is. I like Joaquin Phoenix in that movie. I'm in for a sequel if they want to do a sequel. And it looked like, oh, based on what I'm seeing in this trailer, I might even like the sequel more than I like the first one. And then somehow or other, between that trailer getting dropped, and when the movie premiered at the Venice Film Festival, it felt like all of the air got let out of the Joker room. And I have no idea what it was. I think what I have been encountering is during the last couple of weeks, people have gone back to the first Joker movie. And I don't know how common this is, but everybody I know is saying, I like this a lot less than I liked it when I first watched it. And I guess not to talk about the sequel, but when I rewatched the first movie before watching the second one the day before, I thought, oh, I really actually don't think I like this movie. Not that I think it's like a terrible movie, but like that my review that I left, my tweet length review that I left in the for the Joker commentary, like superhero rewind commentary, that review's out of date now. Like I like it less than I liked it then. Like it's a very strange thing. And I don't know if it's that or what, but somehow the air got let out of the room, and this got a D cinema score. So the people who were all in to go see this are apparently not liking it. And I have no idea what happened. This is a big question mark. Even though that's a different character, I got nothing but a big question mark for why this is not performing.
Yeah. Thanks for that analysis, Connor. That's great. Robert, what were you gonna say?
Uh, do you think the musical side of it is a factor? Now, I know like one of the first things we hear about this movie is it's going to be a musical. That's weird and different. But of course, the general movie going public, doesn't read this stuff that we do. Like they wouldn't have known about this 2 years ago. And I will say with that first trailer to me really downplays the musical elements, or at least out of context. I don't know. I don't know if you watch that trailer out of context and think, oh, this movie's a musical.
But Robert, I would
And
argue that if you'd not heard that, they didn't make a trailer that made that clear. Just because they're singing in a couple of places, there are not full-on clear musical numbers. Like you can't tell that's what's happening. And I mean, like I saw most, if not every trailer, and I wasn't convinced it was still a musical until I went to see it, because there was all this talk that it started with Joker 2 is going to be a musical. It's experimental. Isn't that weird? And then it turned into it's going to be a jukebox musical. And when I say turned into, just things we didn't know about yet, and then like the information kept developing, and then it turned into, I heard at one point, which turned out not to really be true. It's not really a musical, and they're mostly just speaking lyrics. Like I thought a lot of the screenplay was gonna be just like in well-known song lyrics, which immediately I was like, oh my god, I don't want to sit through that. I don't want it to be them like just having conversations in lyrics. I was really worried it was going to be that. It's like just deeply pretentious, and I'm going to say that word a lot tonight probably, but like deeply pretentious and not, anything like as creative as they're going to think that they are. And that's not really what we got. And it ends up being a lot more like the actual, for real musical we thought it would be. But it is, in fact, a jukebox musical. And the music is few and far between enough that I get why Phillips is saying it's sort of a musical and it's sort of not. But, like, there are songs all the way through. It's as much of a musical as Return of Captain Invincible is a musical.
Well, and to kind of contradict the thing I said earlier, obviously most people don't read the stuff that we read, or as in the know on behind the scenes stuff. But there's just so much talk these last few months, like you were saying, is it a musical? Is it not a musical? Do you think, and again, I didn't see this a lot in the other trailers either, but at some point, do you think just the whole general public, like within the last month, got the memo, oh, this is a musical, I'm out, and I'm not seeing it? Because as we've seen the last few years, people just don't go to musicals anymore. They consistently
That's interesting. I didn't have that
I don't
thought.
know.
But yeah, go ahead,
There's
Connor.
also the trend, though, Robert. There's that trend of, like, studios are not marketing their musicals like
As
they're
musicals.
Yeah.
And, like, there is Wicked.
Look at Wicked. You can't even tell if any of the characters in it will be singing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's.
It could just all be in the background. I don't know.
But it's like Wicked was like that decade's Hamilton in terms of it being, or Rent, where it's like that's the musical of the 2000s. And so it's like everyone, I think, should know that. But if you look at that movie, you couldn't tell. The Wonka movie is a musical. You cannot tell that it's a musical based on the trailers. And this is the exact same thing.
What a great point.
So The Color Purple was another musical.
So they're kind of scared of that. Yeah,
and that bombed.
Annie years ago, nobody saw that. Like, yeah, people don't typically go to the theater for musicals anymore.
Yeah, the West Side Story bombed, and I really liked that movie.
I did too. It was so good.
And then The Greatest Showman was the anomaly that
yes.
When that came out, and again didn't have a good opening weekend, but that built over weeks. Like people were just in the right mood for it, and a lot of us were saying, "Oh, I guess musicals we're back," and then they weren't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't know what's going on with people in musicals.
But I am, and we'll get into the review here in a second. But there's still this kind of nagging feeling in the back of my mind. My instincts tell me, Connor, that even if this wasn't a musical, it would be tanking.
Okay.
Interesting.
And I can't put my finger exactly on why, but I think some of it is what you were tapping into earlier, that people made the mistake of going back to the first one. Because, like, almost unanimously, you said it, everyone you're talking to, everybody I'm talking to, if they were high on it before, they're not as high on it now. And then you're like, do I even need more of this? And a lot of it seems to be some of the same things that I was frustrated with and complaining about the other night with the Superhero Rewind commentary, which is, I thought I understood this character. I don't know if the movie understands its character, where it just seems so at odds with itself in a lot of ways. And I'm a little bit frustrated, I gotta be honest with you, coming back after that experience, having to get back into that world and talk about this character again. But here we are, and we're gonna do it. So I'm sure that conversation will come back a little bit as we go along here. Somebody in the comments was saying, by the way, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here live. We've got lots of super chats. I hope you guys will understand. I'm going to wait and hit those until after the sign flips probably, and we'll try not to take too long with those if we can help it. But some of the super chats that I'm seeing, it will be impossible for me to read them without showing our hand. And again, it's just not time to put the cards down yet. So we'll do that a little bit later. But I think there is. What was I starting to say? I just I don't know. Like you said earlier, Connor, like people seem to have been like really curious about what a sequel to this would be. Maybe this is what it is, where it's like they were kind of curious to see what that would look like, and now they've seen what it looks like, and now they don't actually care that much to go to the theater to see it. Like maybe this is a thing that if it had shown up on demand in the first place, it would have been gigantic, but that people aren't feeling like they have to rush out to the theater to see it. And then the question is like how theatrical of an experience was Joker for people, even though like it looks really good and people really liked what it looked like. Is it possible that some of it is that? Like I'm not sure. And then with the musical part of it, Robert, like everybody knew Lady Gaga was in this. You get her because she can sing,
right?
Is part of that whole deal.
And back to Connor's point about the CineScore, I'm going to try to say this without showing my hand on how I feel about it, but I don't care about CineScore or
Oh
a
yeah,
lot
no,
of
me neither. Me
stuff
neither.
like that. This is just a question. I'll see if you guys agree or disagree with me. That this is not how I feel about that movie. That Cinema Score, again, without spoiling anything, I think is 90% because of that ending.
Okay.
I think how the movie leaves people is why you get that D cinema score. If that movie has a different ending, I think it's in the C range. So that's just a prediction.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and see, now we're in the like C raise call portion of the poker game, because the way I'm gonna respond to that, Robert, is, and the reason maybe the main reason that people were so high on the first movie was also that ending.
Possible.
What I started to say, because of what they could imagine for the character post that. What I'm sorry, Connor.
Well, I was just gonna say that like I think a lot of like I think cinema score is just a really good tool like of predicting word of mouth. And I think
Sure.
for most viewers, what the movie leaves them with is how they recommend it to their friends. And so I think maybe like you're right.
Absolutely.
It probably is like where the movie leaves you with. And so yeah, it would be curious.
That's why we need to do away with the after credit scene. It's the last thing you're left with. Like, stop it. Unless it's brilliant. But anyway, what I started to say a minute ago, Connor, I'm glad you brought me back to this, is somebody in the comments earlier said they thought word of mouth was still what has caused this, even just it being opening weekend. And that's gotta be some of it for Saturday, Sunday, because we do, like to be fair, we do live in a society, we do live in a world where we learn about people's opinions and information very, very quickly, of course. And so it's going to affect your second week a lot more than your first, but it still can certainly affect your first. But again, it feels like people have lost interest just since that initial trailer. And I'm just trying to figure that out. But we've talked about this part of it too long. Connor, would you give us the most cryptic and briefest of synopses?
Yeah, Joker, Folie, Deux is the sequel to Joker. It returns Todd Phillips to
That
the
was
director's
really
chair.
good pronunciation. I should have had you open the show.
Thank you.
I should have done that. I really wanted to just be like Joker 2 and hope nobody made me say it, but
I think a lot of people don't care to like write out the subtitle. I just see Joker 2 everywhere I look. So,
it's like Birds of Prey, except not as long of a subtitle. No, nobody's going to say that.
But anyways, it returns a lot of the people, cast and crew from the first one who can return. Todd Phillips directs. Todd Phillips and Scott Silver write. Joaquin Phoenix is Arthur Fleck, the titular Joker, and then Lady Gaga is kind of the new big selling point in terms of like, you know, what's Joker got in his extended like kind of character roster? Well, Harley Quinn. So Lady Gaga is here as a sort of version of Harley Quinn, the same way Arthur Fleck could be seen as a version of the Joker. So it's picking up 2 years after Joker left off. Arthur is in Arkham Asylum. Wow. Arthur is in Arkham Asylum. There's a lot of A's here. And then
Arthur Asylum, right.
Yeah, it's Arthur Asylum. And so he is kind of going through that. And then while he's in, he meets a woman named Lee, who's in a different ward than him, and they sort of strike up a relationship. And she is played by Lady Gaga, and you'll never believe this, guys. She can sing, but she's also in sort of like this music therapy sort of thing. And then so they kind of have a relationship that starts to blossom, and she does seem to be more in love with this Joker persona that she sort of projects onto him. And Arthur sort of wants to, you know, bring that part of himself out again as he's sort of, you know, lost his mojo in prison or Arkham. But then as this is happening, he is also getting ready to get put on trial for the events of the first movie. So that's effectively the premise here. And that is where we will start the conversation.
That was excellent, Connor. I really appreciate that. I've never seen you quite manage that, both as eloquently and as brief, but also with no sense of how you feel about this, because usually if you really hate something, it's just dripping with sarcasm, and if you love it, you're like making out with it while you're explaining what happened to it. And I'm not seeing either of those things. There's no vitriol and there's no like lipstick. Like I'm not seeing any of that. So now we're gonna flip our cards over, and I want to hear from. Oh boy, where do I want to start? Robert, are you okay opening?
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna hear from Robert first.
Okay, so I'm starting with my sign flip. Is that how we're starting this thing?
That's completely
Oh
up to you.
boy.
So sign flip, best thing, worst thing. What you were feeling walking out of the theater, and you can do those things in any order you want to. And let me, sorry, real quick, I will let you get your sign flip out. But let me just remind everybody watching live right now. We've got a decent sized crowd. There might be people that haven't been to these before. So we'll do spoilers when we're finished with the sign flips. So do us a favor and don't spoil a bunch of stuff in the comments if you can help it, for folks that came in just to see what we think about this. Really lengthy preamble, just so that we can analyze the weirdness of how this is underperforming. But anyway, so yeah, Robert, any order you want, man. The floor is yours.
Okay, where to begin with this movie? Joker Folie Deux is both the Halloween Kills and the Halloween Ends of Joker movies. It's coming off of a movie that was a big hit and kind of polarizing, and also got sequels that no one really asked for and didn't know were what they wanted. And oh boy, that ending. Uh, so for me, this is my sign. I've got these two Blu-rays of a movie I really don't like and a movie I really do like. This is good. This is bad. I had a lot of
By the
thoughts while
way,
watching this movie.
we might have some disagreement tonight. I have no idea. What you just said with those two movies is just objectively true.
Yes, it is. We can agree on this. When for a lot of this movie, I'm thinking, uh-oh, am I gonna be the guy who likes this? when do I turn on this movie? And when it's all said and done, I'm gonna say I'm not feeling it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it comes together.
When did you turn on the movie?
It's I can't say until we get into spoilers, and it's not the ending exclusively, which is what a lot of people would assume. What I was getting at with the ending earlier, I think for hardcore Joker fans, people who love that first movie, that ending is what's killing this for them. But for me personally, I still like that movie. I guess I'm alone on an island there. However, I did not immediately rewatch it before seeing the new one because I wanted to go into this one kind of fresh. So I've rewatched the first one. I haven't rewatched
that was
it
smart.
many times.
I mean, that's the biggest mistake I made.
Yeah, and we can get into why that is. But I will say, there are pieces of this movie I liked. There are scenes I like. And the way this movie opens is certainly a choice. And I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. I don't know. I don't think I mind this. And then it's entirely superfluous and could be cut out. And that's how I feel about a lot of this movie. So there's not a specific point where it loses me. It's just there's a lot of pieces and ideas I like that just don't come together for me that then feel like, well, that was kind of pointless. Best thing is tough because there's a lot of little things I like about it. Best thing, I guess I'm just going to say, I might be alone here, is performances. For the most part, I really like this cast. I really like the acting. Brendan Gleeson, I think, is a standout, not necessarily the character, but I think his performance is great. There's a person who takes the stand. Again, we'll get into some spoilers where I think that scene's dynamite. I think that guy is great, and I want to see that guy in more stuff. I think he's a fantastic actor. So I guess best thing for me is acting. Worst thing with the movie as is, I'm going to say runtime. Not that it's intrusively long, like it's not even 2.5 hours, but just looking at the movie as it is, not what I wanted from it or what I would have done differently with it, just with what we got and where it ends, I think you could gut a lot out of this movie. This could be 90 minutes with where we end up going. We can get into the songs. There's some I actually like. There's some I don't. And there's a lot I think you could cut out, and that's how I feel. That's how I felt about the opening scene and a lot of parts of this movie. Is I didn't mind that, but you could totally cut it. That goes nowhere. So that's ultimately why I'm not feeling it and why it didn't really come together for me. But I didn't hate it. It's better than Salem's Lot on Max, and I'm not changing my mind on that. Context is everything. I did a double feature of Salem's Lot and the Velma Halloween special the day before. This is a masterpiece compared to those. So it's all about the mood and perspective you have watching a thing like this. So that's how I'm currently feeling. I'm not feeling it. Even though I do like that first movie. I never called it brilliant. I never called it a masterpiece. I was just like, I like that movie. And I still kind of like that movie. And that's how I felt about the Halloween movies. I still kind of like Halloween 2018 and Where We Go. Not so much. And again, we're sequels to a movie I didn't need a sequel to begin with. That's how I feel about Joker. I just didn't need a sequel to that movie. So I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. But that's how I feel. That's where I'm at.
Robbie, your thoughts were excellently crystallized there. I'm wondering if you practiced that in a mirror, but it was really, really good. I just want to remind everybody though that when he gets to the end and says compared to some of these other things he's talking about, it's a masterpiece. His standards are at the center of the earth, and he opened it going to the Halloween sequels. I think it's just important that we have a sense of perspective here.
Yes, I want that to be clear.
Okay, Connor, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next.
Okay, because there's a part of me that's chomping at the bit because he reminded me of some things I want to say, but I'll let you go. Go ahead.
So, this movie is one of those movies that it falls into a category that I do have some like there's an I think a lot of people have this, and I'm no different. I have a contrarian streak in me. I like stuff that just kind of disrupts things. I like stuff that is maybe even antagonistic towards the audience that is paying to see it. The only Michael Bay movie I like is Bad Boys 2, and that movie achieves a superhuman Paul Verhoeven cynicism, and it is shocking that a major studio released that and that they even thought they could make a third movie after that. They made a third and fourth Bad Boys movie, but once you go Bad Boys 2, you can never go back, and those are the most boring movies in the world. I like Showgirls a lot. I like Death Proof. Like, I like a lot of movies that a lot of people don't like, and specifically, like, I do enjoy things that almost are aware, like they have like a self-aware, like sabotage quality to it, and that's kind of something I'm picking up on this movie. I like stuff that, if nothing else, I find it artistically interesting. Is Megalopolis good? I don't know. I don't think so, but I liked it. If nothing else, it was interesting, which is more than I could say about the other major Bet the Farm movie, Horizon, which was just boring and bad. So Joker, Folie Deux. You guys are gonna hate me. I loved it. No, I'm just fucking messing with you.
Yeah.
I did not like it. I thought it was bad. It was, and I think the Halloween sequels are actually
I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off and tell you not to give us anything else, but I almost want you to just flip your sign and stop there. It was bad.
I'm disappointed you didn't keep that going longer because I already knew you didn't like the movie because I saw where you were and some others. So I was like, oh, how long is he gonna? Oh, it's over.
Did you see my face lump first? I bought it for about a second and a half.
Yes. Yeah, no, this is gonna be a red clown nose for me. Yeah, so I think the Halloween sequels are like the perfect like comparison to this, where I think something like Halloween Ends is a great analog for this, where is it conceptually interesting? Yes. Is it interesting to me that the movie almost has like this like self-aware like antagonism towards its audience? Yes, I kind of like that stuff. I just don't think that there's enough of a vision. There are ideas, there are concepts here, but there isn't a story. And that is what is like the fundamental issue here, I think. And like the worst thing is that, like, well, okay, and sorry, but I think that when it came to the character of Arthur Fleck, there was an idea for a character, and they made a movie about him called Joker. And now, this is not the first time that Todd Phillips has just set his franchise on fire. He did previously make The Hangover Part 2, which similarly, kind of interesting, but I don't like that movie. And it's like they just made more Joker, but they were all out of story. And instead of like, it's been 5 years, I feel like you come up with the story, you know, like Hangover 2 came out 2 years after Hangover, like makes sense. So that's the big frustration here. If I had to do a best thing, I think the first 2 to 3 minutes are the best thing. I think it opens with like an animated cartoon in the vein. I actually recently went to Los Angeles. I went to a movie theater where they were playing a revival screening, a retro 3D print of Creature from the Black Lagoon. And ahead of it, they showed a Bugs Bunny cartoon. And it was really awesome. Like the whole theater was laughing. It got us into the movie. It was kind of like spooky themed with like a mad scientist. It was water, water, every hair, in case anyone knows their Looney Tunes. It was great. I'd never seen that short before. It made me laugh. It was a good way to get into the movie. And then Creature from the Black Lagoon rules. And so watching this, it was kind of like that, where you get your cartoon and then you get the movie. You're right, though, Robert. That cartoon, completely superfluous. And it actually leads into my least favorite thing about this movie. And it's weird that like my best thing about this movie is sort of what sets the stage for my least favorite thing. My least favorite thing about the movie is the entire film is predicated on this premise that fundamentally rewrites the first movie. And I could never, I'm like, is this movie gaslighting me? I've seen the first movie. I've seen it multiple times. I just watched it yesterday. I just fundamentally do not believe that the Joker and Arthur are these split personalities. And that's sort of what the entire movie is built on. And it's trying to convince you of that. And it was maddening and it was frustrating. And then where we ultimately go with that at the ending just made me feel like this whole movie was just like a giant waste of time and resources. I don't know why this thing costs as much as it is. I don't know why it's as long as it is. And there's so, because there's no story, there's so little momentum. It's like it's rudderless. It's just adrift in the sea of concepts and ideas and performance concepts and like, you know, choices for actors and just like scenes that they thought would be cool. Like it made for a pretty good trailer, but I think as a movie, it was supremely underwhelming. And I was with it like you, Robert, with some of the interesting scenes. But then after a while, I really got the feeling that it wasn't going anywhere. And all the stuff that I was interested and excited by in concept, it just sort of left me unsatisfied. But I feel like the movie achieved its goal. I think the point is to not be a good movie. And so what's frustrating is that, like, even though it has all the production in the world, they couldn't make an interesting bad movie. And that is what I think is the ultimate fault here. So that's my side flip.
I want to put a pin in that discussion about the idea of him having split personality, because I think Kat should probably go first to say how he's feeling. I don't know if he's going to mention that, but I had a very different read.
I did too. My read on that is also different, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
I'm curious to talk about that.
What I want to do though, so yes, put a pin in it, write it down someplace, Robert. But so I'll do my sign flip, and then I do want to go ahead and go through the super chats because we have quite a few, and I don't want to be an hour and a half in before we start hitting any of those. I want to thank again the audience for popping in tonight, and as late as it is, because this is probably the biggest live viewership we've had this year, and that means that more people are watching us than are seeing this film, and I really, really appreciate that. So thank you guys a lot. Where in the world do I want to start? Connor, I'm going to have a hard time not just echoing a lot of what you just said. The way I have always approached review is to, particularly with narrative analysis, looking at something that's been around a while, is what is the thing trying to achieve? Is it accomplishing that? And was that worth doing in the first place? And if you don't nail part 3, the whole thing is a waste of time. And that's what you have here. I don't know what the point of of this movie. Like I don't know why this movie was made. I don't know who it's for. If it is for anybody, it's this really tiny like subsect of people like in the middle of people that loved that first movie. This movie is, as Connor said, kind of intentionally antagonizing, but then also people that didn't like that movie are still probably not going to go into this and have a good time because they still have to watch the same performance about the same character, even if we're told that fundamentally that character is not what the first movie said he was, and what Phillips himself in his director commentary says he was. This is I'm going to say it like this. This is the most expensive middle finger I've ever seen. This is a $200 million middle finger to the audience, to Hollywood, to, like, the kind of success that that a guy doesn't want to have because he wishes he had a different career. And I'll just go right away because at this point nobody's going to be surprised. But I am not feeling Rob Zombie's Joker 2. I could not help but think that from the animated opening on, I was like, it's really weird that they just had Rob Zombie make this movie. And it's one of those sequels that I've got to, and the thing I'm about to mention to a lesser extent, but I've got a little bit of like the Dark Knight Rises thing with this, where I come into this going, you as a filmmaker or and as a storyteller have changed what you think fundamentally about your own work and about what the point of the last movie was and what the end of it is. And so you're retroactively reinventing that, and like retconning continuity or like little events that happen in a thing is one thing. Retconning the entire reason the movie exists is a whole other thing. We're told, well, I say we're told. I think it's, and I talked about this obviously the other night when we did the commentary on the first Joker movie. It's at odds with itself. It's very confusing when you get to the end of that movie, and the idea is simultaneously Joker's getting revenge on people who are mean to him and not kind. Because Phillips in his commentary thinks that he needs to tell me that movie is about kindness. Okay. And
well, hold on. Zack Snyder did tell us that kindness is a virtue of God.
That's true. I'm glad he explained that. But at least he was doing that in the film and not in his commentary telling me I'm an idiot. And he almost comes straight out and says, you're a horrible person if you are not picking up on this. And I'm like, no, you're deaf and not looking at subtitles if you're not picking up on this. But all right. But anyway, it's simultaneously saying that it's revenge on people that are not kind to him, and also that he doesn't have any political worldview, and that he is just kind of the dog chasing cars thing and doesn't believe in anything. And I'm always looking at that movie since the first viewing. I'm like, okay, which is it? And Philip says that the idea is supposed to be, because his movie is so ambiguous that I need him to explain this to me, and I think he might have come up with it after the fact, that the Joker is who Arthur Fleck was all along, and he finally transforms into that at the end, and he's embraced it. And this movie says, and minor spoilers, I guess, but the whole point of this is the Joker was a lie. There never was a Joker at all. And so it just completely contradicts, like Connor said, the whole notion of the first movie. So yeah, the whole thing is just a giant middle finger, and there is no story, and that's my worst thing. And I guess I'm saying a thing that Connor said already, but I'm not stealing it, because I'm gonna take that as my absolute worst thing. My worst thing is the story. Everything is just. And there's some of this in the first movie of just like kind of analogs and dialogue that is simply about Phillips telling us what he thinks about the Hollywood system and stuff. But this is his telling us what he thinks about his career and about the kind of thing that he has to make to stay relevant. So the joke, I can't decide if the joke is on the audience or if the joke is on Phillips, because this feels like not just so it feels like he's sabotaging the idea of a franchise. That, like, if he's gonna make a sequel, he's gonna make a sequel about how we have too many sequels, and how, you know, everything he had to say in the first place was said. So now this has to be about something completely different, and maybe we're even supposed to see it as almost not even in the same continuity, where it's like it's just about the message and not really anything else. And so it feels like he's intentionally sabotaging this as an idea of a franchise or even the first movie or something. But it also feels like he's sabotaging his own career. Like, I don't know what he does after this. And I don't understand how Warner's looks at this and expects anybody to be satisfied by it. And Phillips is like patting himself on the back, both in the movie and in interviews, saying, like, I knew no one was going to be satisfied. That's the point. And this idea originally came from the notion, which I think is actually kind of neat, of doing a sequel as I don't know if you guys know about this, but as a Broadway play, where it wasn't even going to be a movie, and you would have to pay money and go sit in a live performance to ever see it. And that gets axed because of COVID, and I go, why don't you just make it after COVID? You made this after COVID. Like, why is it a movie now? I don't understand that. If this exact same thing was made but on stage, I almost have more respect for it. Like, almost. I'll talk a little bit later about how I think he might have been able to get away with making the exact point he's making with this and still make it not feel like anti-entertainment, which is what I feel like I'm sitting through. I was in the exact same boat Robert was, where I was halfway through and I was like, I'm not sure why everybody's hating this. I was with it okay. Like, there was a chance at things adding up. I guess best thing I'm gonna give to... You know, it's hard not to just say the stuff that worked with the first movie, like the production value is still there, the performances are still pretty good. I think Lady Gaga is really good in it, and I'm gonna give it that. And again, I'm gonna talk a little bit later about how I think you could have overhauled this and made it not feel like it hates the people watching it. It's so weird how much more nihilistic and cynical this is, because I don't feel like the first movie is actually cynical by the end. You know, as a character study, this just hates everybody. It's weird. And it also feels like it's going well, the first movie, and again, there's this like artsy fartsy kind of pretentiousness about it, where so at least he's consistent. Where you get to the end and the idea is the first movie was a comedy, so this one has to be a tragedy. Okay, I see what you did there. And that's why you had to make it so there will only ever be two of them, because you have the massive comedy and tragedy. It's like, yeah, buddy, I see what you're doing there. It's not hard to... He thinks he's so brilliant. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I guess my best thing is gonna be her performance. You know what? I just remembered what I was gonna say for my best thing, which is that the Joker Harley relationship, which of course is a different thing in this because it's all reinvented, like Connor said, for a different context. But I do really appreciate that relationship is not romanticized, because we've had way too much of that, and we did that with Suicide Squad, and it really bothered me. And there's no glorification of that. There's nothing that says this relationship is not toxic. I do really appreciate that, but I think she's quite good in it. This was pain by the end. And I get Robert saying he's not mad. I kind of am a little bit, because this is one of those rare birds, and maybe this isn't even fair, where, like, yeah, it hurts the first one. for me. It really does, because I don't know how to full on ignore it. Like if I were to go back to watch the first movie, there were things I wanted this movie to kind of clear up, and then what it really does is it just tells me that Phillips never knew what this character was. Just like I kind of felt the last time I watched it and talked about it.
Yeah, it is like strange in that way, because like I remember when I was watching it the day before I saw the second one, I was watching the first one again, and I was sort of entertaining this reading of it that I'd never had before, where I was like, wait a minute, what if it's this? And I'm not going to say it because spoilers. And then I watched this movie, and it was like a 2 hour and 20-minute validation of this new interpretation I just had, and I'm like, oh, I don't like these movies. Wait.
Yeah, it's always odd when a sequel to a movie made by the exact same team feels like such a different animal, or feels like it's dropped massively in quality in some way. And this doesn't have exactly that. I don't even know that this script is any better or worse than the first. Well, no, it is worse, I guess. But like in a lot of ways, the quality is still about the same. It's more about attitude. Like in a way, this was made by two different people.
Sure.
Or I mean, these movies, like. Yeah. Although, to Connor's point, it's also made by the same person in that this is what he wants to do with sequels. I just feel like what we're dealing with here, and like he pulled the wool over everybody's eyes with the first movie, I feel like, which is part of why I'm saying this movie hurts that, because I didn't see it as much until I saw this. This guy is a troll that people keep handing millions of dollars to make movies. And that's what's supposed to be fun about it, I guess. You don't get much more self-indulgent than this. And when we get into spoilers, I'll break down where a lot of the self-indulgent is. But when you take a character like Harley Quinn, who's the big new supporting character in this, and you make her simply a stand-in for the audience that you feel like liked your first movie too much, that is really self-indulgent. And especially to do this with DC characters. Because it feels even more than it did before, like there was never any business, that this never had any business being a Batman thing. Like it really feels like that now.
I think this is where I think I'll defend a little bit. In theory, like this is like the great argument against what I like in interpretations. Because like my favorite kinds of things when it comes to like DC comics or comic book adaptations is I don't so much care about fidelity as much as I care about having a take. And so like what I like about Tim Burton's Batman movie is that you can tell what makes Tim Burton tick by the aspects of Batman that he's really leaning into. Same thing with Christopher Nolan. And even like Zack Snyder, we can like look at like, why would you interpret DC this way? But like, oh, it speaks to Zack Snyder as a creative. And then you get stuff like this, where it does feel like all the comic book stuff is just coats of paint. And he has no interest
to get
in
people to pay attention to it and get in the theater. It's really weirdly cynical. But then also in an odd way, it's a lot less like typical corporate studio product, because it feels like it's shooting itself in the foot. I don't see how an executive looked at this and thought it would make money.
Well, and that is interesting, because this is probably shortly after Zaslav takes over WB, and it's like, well, the last one made $1 billion.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want to do.
That's what happened with The Hangover, though. Like the first Hangover movie was a massive hit. It was on the AFI top 10 of 2009. And you get to the second one, and it is the most ugly, mean-spirited, cruel, like comedy in like in name only. And then you get to the third Hangover movie, because the second one was an even bigger hit, I think. And then like they didn't even make a comedy. It's just this like dark crime drama. It gets so bizarre.
Weird.
And yeah, and I don't know, like there's like this thing about Todd Phillips where I've seen enough of his movies to where it's like I see an artist there where he does sort of have like when you see the more human side of his movies, he does seem to have like this. He was probably like a frat guy, and as he's kind of like aged, he can see like that the frat boy energy of like his friends like try to reckon with growing up and stuff. And I think that's there. And I think even in The Hangover, which I'm not that big of a fan of, there is like kind of like it speaks to the nature of male friendship, even as you get older. And like Due Date has a little bit of that too. And I'm like, I don't really like any of his movies, but like I see something there that I do want to like respect and pay attention to. But when it does come to this, like it does just feel bizarrely mean spirited to just the way culture is. And it's like I think, you know, society's got or society has got its problems, particularly in the entertainment industry, particularly in Hollywood, and like the way, you know, intellectual property is like the only thing that seems to matter anymore. But like, man, like I just don't think this is the way to do it.
No, and we'll get to super chats in a second. I got like 4 different ways I could piggyback off of what you just said, Connor. The way this deals, well, first of all, I agree with you on what you said about fidelity and having a take. And one of the examples I always go to, not that this is a brilliant movie or anything, is Constantine, where it'd be nice to have something a lot closer to comics, but that's a fun movie that holds together and has a set of rules and sticks to it, and like everything works. And like, you know, The Mask is that way, Batman '89 is that way, et cetera, et cetera. The first movie, there's already a bit of an argument to be made of how did this really need to be based on that character at all? Like what does it have really to do with the Joker? Did you just take the name and clown makeup and kind of run with it? And the excuse the movie ends up being able to lean on is, well, we still kind of did something with Bruce Wayne in it. And when you get to the end of the movie, you can imagine, except for like the kind of brilliant mastermind side of the Joker, this guy becoming some version of a clown prince of crime. And then you get to this movie and they have no interest in that. And that was actually the big thing that I was really resisting in that initial trailer, as I was like, oh, he's just Arthur Fleck again. I thought the whole point of the movie was that there was, I mean, ironically, was that there is no Arthur Fleck. And then this movie says there is no Joker. And it's almost like they're intended, the whole, again, tragedy comedy thing, it's like they're intentionally contradicting each other. They're intentionally at loggerheads. Is there a way to do that? I think there is, and I'm going to make you wait before I pitch it, so that we can read these super chats, and hopefully I remember to do that. But thematically, Connor, this movie has the exact same problem with its central theme of fame and infamy that the first movie has with the central theme of how society deals with mental health. It throws it out there, and it really doesn't explore it very much. And because it's moody and atmospheric, and because characters are mean to our protagonist, we're supposed to care. And it's really surface level in that same way. So, I mean, this movie does have some of the same problems the first one does, but it has that added issue of, you know, A, if you really liked that movie, it's not interested in you, and B, going in my mind by the end, just the lamest possible direction. It's weird that Phoenix, with that first movie, was, you know, on press tours, was interviewed and said, we don't really plan on making another movie, but I'm just imagining all these different fascinating directions that you could go. This is not one of them. There's just nothing interesting about where this goes by the end, in my mind. It's really, like, I was so deflated at the end. And then to know that was the point, it's hard not to kind of feel insulted by that. And so once again, I'll reiterate, if he's going, yay, I did what I set out to do, I go, okay, I don't know why. Like, I guess that's supposed to be the joke, right? Like, he's, you know, I said Rob Zombie. It's like the, you know, there's a universe where this is what Andy Kaufman did with his career, except in his way he was funny. Like, who is this for?
I don't know. I guess my read on it is slightly more kind than yours, even though I don't think this movie's good. Like you said, it throws out a lot of questions it doesn't know what to do with. I guess my read, at least while I was watching it and after the fact, and why I'm not as angry or insulted by it as you are, is my read on it was this movie is angry at the people who loved and idolized Joker in the way they weren't supposed to.
Yeah, no, that's the
Uh, that
point.
that that's what I
But
thought. That which I
that's
didn't
part of
think.
what makes me angry about it, though, Robert, is he didn't make his intentions with that clear enough at the end of the movie. He made it so ambiguous that he should have expected that response, and then he got angry about it. That's ridiculous. Like, am I supposed to like Arthur Fleck or not? And you get into this movie, and clearly he has decided now that you were supposed to find Arthur Fleck, even though he is this, real unfortunate, damaged soul, really sympathetic. And then when he becomes the Joker, it's not supposed to be cathartic. It's supposed to be, I guess, ironically tragic. And but it plays like catharsis. You can't have that both ways. And so he should have expected that.
Yeah, the movie is like weirdly like in being mean to like the response to I think it does sort of like weirdly have a cruelty towards Arthur that all of the characters that the movie is critical also towards him. And so it's like what like I that's where it becomes a little like hard for me to like kind of tie the knot because when I was watching the first movie again, I kind of had this like thing of like I feel like that movie kind of struggles to tell its story. I feel like what it ought to have done is that it's a guy who's very docile and obedient, and then as the world starts, is cruel to him, everyone is like to a comical degree cruel to him. And then when he finally starts lashing out, it should be that the world seems to reward him for being violent, and that would like okay, well, I guess this is how you get ahead. You are cruel. Like that's what it ought to be. And I don't think that's
And that's
really
the part of Taxi Driver it should have ran with. Because you could make the whole movie about that as opposed to just getting there at the end.
Yeah, and so, but then like I was kind of watching the movie and like I was like, wait, I don't think there's a Joker in this. I think like what's going on is that like it's supposed to be a movie about a cruel world that is just like uh, going nowhere. And so when somebody does something violent, they decide to like make that person a mascot and ascribe intentionality to that person when there never was any intention. They were just trying to fit in or something. And then also, I guess we treat mentally ill people poorly. That too. And so and yeah, I don't feel like it really like kind of makes its statements in a very like linked up way. And then when you get to this one, it's like there was not a Joker, guys, and I was like, oh, fascinating. Like I was kind of right, I guess, retroactively. but at the same time, it's like, but is that what like? But what does this movie have to say with there was no Joker? The people who had ascribed intentionality towards him were wrong. Okay, in the case of this movie, all right, what are they supposed to do? But then the thing though is we live in the real world where there is a line of comic books with a character named Joker, and that's why people ascribe intentionality to your movie, Todd. It's because that's why. And it seems to be like he's mad that people did that. And I'm like, you can't be mad that people did that. The DC logo is on it. It's called Joker. You have characters named Bruce and Thomas Wayne in it. It takes place in a place called Gotham City. Like what are we doing, man?
Yeah, and so this isn't me being fanboyish about this and being mad about it because it's not the Joker I want from the comics. Robert, my whole point is I'm not convinced that Todd Phillips... I'm calling BS on the man. I'm not convinced that Todd Phillips ever knew who this character was. And so he's upset that people didn't understand his movie and didn't understand this character, and then he reinvents it for his sequel to make that point. Stop it.
Well, and again, we're not into spoilers yet, but for that ending, because I was hearing before I saw the movie that the ending was very controversial. It's probably what kills the movie for a lot of people. When I got to the ending, I'm not going to say I predicted it, at the start of the movie, but before it happened, I was like, oh, this is how this movie's going to end. That's kind of lame. So I kind of had what you did, where I wasn't again, I didn't leave the theater angry, and I wasn't like, oh my god, I can't believe that they did that. It was just like, oh, okay, that was kind of lame and obvious. All right. So, and the movie was already kind of fizzling out.
Yeah, and
for me by that point.
and it was lame and obvious. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't have been as irritated as I was if I hadn't listened to him talk for 2 hours about the first movie.
That's fair.
That was the other big mistake I made. Because Connor, when you say you get to the end and you're like, oh, maybe there isn't a Joker, I had the same thing. And then I listened to his commentary, and the entire movie he's saying he's going to make this big transformation. He's going to make this big transformation. He's actually the Joker inside all along. And when you get to the end, that finally comes out. That's not the movie he made. And I think he might have decided that retroactively. And then you get to this movie, and he's contradicting the thing he said it was.
And yeah, I don't know. Like, and the thing is, like, I might like the sort of self-sabotaging movies. I might like the kind of antagonistic.
There's a meta thing
things,
there that could have been really clever and creative,
yeah,
maybe.
No,
but you also have to somehow make it entertaining. Like,
well, I know, but that's the thing, though. Is it's like in those examples that I can cite, those filmmakers stand by whatever sequel the like Lighted on Fire movie might be. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Gremlins 2 is angry at the success of Gremlins. I think it just didn't want to be a sequel, so they just said, let's just like not care about anything and just be complete anarchy. And so it's like I feel like what's irritating is that it feels like Todd Phillips does not stand by his own movie, and like that feels like he's stabbing his own art in the back, and I don't like that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah, he doesn't seem even as mad at the viewers that read his movie wrong as he is at like that movie for being what it was. It's really weird. Okay, I better read these super chats. Dubby, $10 super chat. I'm sorry, Connor. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
No. You're good.
Dubby says, and I'm pretty sure he's being facetious based on something he said later. But he says, "Wow, just wow. Haven't been as in love with a film since Black Hat." I don't know what that is. I got up in the theater and danced, sang, and ate all the popcorn. I was kicked out. Bring on a Joker prequel and extended universe. He also later said, but not in a super chat, movie sucks, I'm out, and just left. So yeah, he's trolling us like Todd Phillips. Okay, give me a second because I have an unresponsive page here, and so I've got to refresh it so that I can read these super chats.
Well, the difference is Todd Phillips didn't give us money when he told us, right?
That's true. Yeah, something I was going to say earlier is I wonder how Phoenix himself feels about this script. Because he claims that he had like a dream at some point after the first movie, just like imagining like Joker being on stage and suddenly couldn't stop thinking about playing the character again. And so the idea to do another movie was kind of his, but because I keep reading like headlines that are like, idea for Joker 2 came from Phoenix. It didn't, though. Just wanting to come back, he was saying for quite a while. This feels like a script that if it was presented, now I might be wrong, and I don't want to pretend like I understand the psychology of Joaquin Phoenix. He seems like he's a good actor. He seems like kind of an odd guy. I don't want to pretend like I understand the psychology of this guy, but I would think that if he was on the fence about making a sequel and he got the script, he'd be like, "No, I'm out." And I feel like he did it just because he wanted to play the role again. I wonder if just how on board with this idea he was. I mean, like, he still does a good job. Like, I'm not saying he's phoning it in. He's there for it.
Well, apparently they were rewriting this movie a lot as they were making it.
Interesting.
I read something about him like throwing away pages of the script and then starting from scratch on certain days. That could be incorrect. That's just a thing I read.
That does seem to be the case. That does seem to be the case with him, though. Like, that's apparently what he was like on the set of Napoleon, where like they would have to restart stuff like from a script point, like on the day of. Yeah.
Okay, so I am a little concerned that I'm not going to be able to get all the super chats up because we've had so many comments tonight, and I don't have a moderator. I don't usually need one for these. So I might need you guys to kind of help me out here.
Yeah,
because I had to refresh my page, and now I can't get them all.
I have that issue too.
Good. Wonderful.
I can try to pull up YouTube elsewhere and see if I can see them.
Yeah, would you please just see if it'll let you scroll all the way to the top of the comments?
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Because there used to be a comment tab, and I'm not getting that now. But anyway, sorry, this is all fascinating. Let me read the ones I can see. W499 Super Chat. So yes, we are skipping some. We're going to try to go back. Do you think this film will end Todd Grimace's career?
Maybe, question mark?
Yeah.
Because where my Halloween analogy breaks down a little bit is because Halloween Kills, and to a lesser extent Halloween Ends, they still made money. Like, they were still at least profitable, and this looks like it might not be because the budget was way too high. And then David Gordon Green makes Exorcist Believer, which I despise. So the next logical step is Tom Phillips to get in a big IP movie that then I'll actually hate, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Because I clearly don't hate this movie as much as you do. So yeah, I don't know what's next for him with how this is.
There's no way this makes its money back. There's no question about that. It had, I want to say it did like 32 domestically, and it has
37.
Okay,
37.
and it has, but I mean, it didn't even break 40, and it has to make 450 to break even, is what I've read. I mean, it ain't doing that. And Todd Phillips also keeps denying the $200 million number. So, like, I'm wondering how splitting hairs he is with this, because everything I'm reading is like with I'm not sure how much they paid Gaga, but like with the stars that they're having to pay with this, and with advertising and stuff, it's got to get to 450 to make its money back. But I mean, okay, let's get real conservative and say it only needs to make 350 to make. It's not going to do that either.
No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, no. This opened this opened smaller than the Marvels. Like, that's concerning.
Sorry, Cap. The last super chat I can get to is the one from Bob the Hun. So I can't see the earlier ones.
Man, I wish I had.
I tried
mod tonight that could have written those all down for us. We're gonna try to figure out a way to get to these. But I'll read the rest of them, and then we'll go back while we're talking and try to figure that out.
Well, yeah, no. Todd Phillips does dispute the 200 claim, but there are some reports that seem to say it was 190, and no one's disputing those. So there might be some.
Okay, so there was an extra $10 million. Who cares?
Yeah, no, exactly.
It ain't making its money back, folks.
And also, that's 450 if it's in like the North American market.
Yeah.
Overseas, studios don't get the same return back. Like, it's going to open in China. Cool. We get 18% of the Chinese gross back. The Chinese government keeps like 75 to 80% of that. So like, it's.
And I don't know if this is a movie that even does very well in China.
I don't think it will.
No.
I wouldn't think so. Okay, I managed to get them back here. So I'll go back through those here in a second. Yeah, sorry about all the touch and go there for a minute, folks. But and then there's still that question of, would it still be not doing very well even if it was good? Like, was the time just kind of passed for this, despite those big trailer numbers? Because that was the big thing I was shocked to find out today, because I didn't realize that like the trailer numbers were huge. And then I read an article like a week ago that said Joker 2 could be Aquaman 2 all over again, which it is.
And it might make less. And Aquaman 2 was the highest grossing DC movie of last year. But I get the comparison because the first one made $1 billion and the second one didn't. But yeah.
Let's go back. Let's go through the rest of these now. W49 Super Chat. Would you guys consider Arthur to be more of an introvert or more of an extrovert? And I like the response that somebody gave. Sorry, I don't have the name in front of me. But I noticed this when that question came in, because it was pre the show, and somebody came in and suggested that he's an introvert in the first movie and he's an extrovert in this movie. I don't know if I totally agree with that. I think in that way he is still sort of consistent in being an introvert. I think the idea is he's using the Joker persona to to be comfortable with coming out of his shell and being a performer, which we see him do in the courtroom. By the way, let's just say full-on spoilers at this point. We're already an hour in, and I don't want to keep avoiding that. But I don't want to hit all the big stuff yet. It's just, if you need to spoil something to make a point with the rest of these super chats, feel free to do that. So spoilers, everybody, and then after that, we will start to hit the big stuff. Help us direct the conversation, folks, in the comments. Bob the Hun, $2 super chat. People who still love the first one hated this one. That is true.
I feel like people who loved the first one hate this more than people who didn't like the first one.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm not even liking the first one. I gave it a villain on our show, and I'm still really irritated. Partly just because I couldn't even get excited about having to see this after. So like, my standards were so in the floor. Like, if it was just sort of more of the same, I'd probably like it more, which is really sad to say, because I really didn't want that either. Guys, explain this to me. And again, I guess if the whole point is just the second movie isn't supposed to match up with the first one, the entire thing is a meta exercise, okay, that's going to be the answer to everything, I guess. But you get to the end of that first movie, and he's got that line at the end, like he's laughing at a joke that in his head, and he tells the psychiatrist you wouldn't get it, and then he's being chased by an orderly, like silent film style, with like bloody footprints everywhere. I don't know if he killed that psychiatrist or what the bloody footprints are about. Like, that was kind of the assumption I'm not sure. But then you open this movie. He's a model prisoner that's never had problems, we're told.
I remember, like, when the first movie came out, there was a lot of discussion about that movie. It was extremely popular. And, one of the things I kept hearing people say was, like, what do you make of the ending? Is it in his head? Is it real? And I just had the biggest I don't care response to that. So I guess it was in his head. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the easy retcon explanation. That's how I felt, was like, oh, okay, we're just saying that was in his head again. Okay, cool.
Because like the implication would be that he murdered that woman who was interviewing him. And this movie, like, will
that
not
can't be the case with this movie, because he only killed 5, and then it turns out to be 6 because of his mother, and that's it. Yeah.
Well, and this is just my opinion, because I still like that movie. Okay, I've always felt, for me personally, just cut to black when he says you wouldn't get it. I don't need that little epilogue moment anyway. Which, as you said, then this movie ignores. So I'm a little vindicated.
But it's
feel that way.
But it is there, and I feel like it's kind of important in, again, this thing retcons this whole idea in saying that, like, more or less, except without maybe the mastermind brilliance, he is full on the Joker now. Like, he's incarcerated and loving it, and will probably break out. One of the things that I found difficult in enjoying even the idea of most of this being a prison film, because I was like, oh, really? We're gonna do like Arthur Fleck's like Shawshank? I'm like, all right. One of the difficulties I have with that idea is I have a hard time even getting why he's in Arkham at the end of the first movie. It feels like it would have been so easy for him to escape and be taken in by the, like, revolutionary mob and all of that. Like, in the theater, I was shocked that he was imprisoned at the end. It's like he gets rescued by them because they crash his car, and then he's standing in front of all of them, and there's no police, like, to be found, or like they're showing up, but they're not gonna be able to do anything about this gigantic mob, and he could have easily just been whisked away by them. and then he's just in, in Arkham at the end. And then the whole next movie is a prison movie. Like, I didn't even buy him. And so that last scene, I was like, well, at least it looks like he's probably going to get out pretty soon.
Well, and of course, this movie throws this theory out the window. But the way I originally read that ending of him at Arkham when he's laughing and says, "You wouldn't get it," like that, I never read that as like the immediate aftermath. That could be any time later. And there's a cutaway early in that film of him in a similar looking cell banging his head on a wall. And one read people had on is like, oh, maybe the whole movie's a flashback. And he's and then there was all the debate and discourse of, is this imaginary? Is this real? And this movie tries to kind of confirm what was real and wasn't, but like you said, also ignores stuff. So I don't know what to do with any of that. And then you get to the end, and why I just wasn't surprised was I remember a lot of discourse at the first movie of maybe he's not the real Joker, maybe he's the guy who inspired the Joker. And spoiler alert, that's kind of the take they go with. So
that's what it would have to be at this point, which is also lame.
Yeah, it was lame. Like, I didn't like it, and my problem with the ending isn't, oh, that's not what I wanted. It's just I just don't think the movie earns the ending it goes with. Again, I wasn't mad at it. It was just I just thought it was lame, like I said, lame and obvious.
So I was already annoyed with how much Gotham was in that first movie, like weirdly, and now there's even more Gotham because this can't be the real Joker in this universe. If this even is really a Batman world, like, Bruce Wayne may have gone and joined a convent at this point. Like, who knows? But also, and I'll just say this because we're here, we really did the Lee thing again with a different character? Are you friggin' kidding me?
That's awesome. I didn't even think of that. That's really
Gotham turns Leslie Tompkins into Lee Tompkins. And why are we so against using character names and things? Why does Dinah Lance have to be Laurel just because her middle name is Laurel in Arrow? Like, why are we too cool for school with character, and specifically female character names? Like, nobody's named Harley. We gotta.
Have you ever met anyone named Leslie? I mean, I went to high school with like 5 Leslies, but I mean, who could really be named Leslie this day and age?
I rolled my eyes at that really hard.
Well, and I already knew about that. God. But going in, I thought like, oh, because the idea is like this is a completely different character. This isn't the Harley Quinn, and then they try to have their cake and eat it too by working in a little bit of her comic backstory, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, we haven't talked about her a lot, but I was actually kind of digging their take for a bit.
I was too.
And then it just doesn't go anywhere, and that's how I feel about the lot of this movie. Is I kind of liked that, and then it doesn't go anywhere.
It's really weird. It's a really... Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a cool concept to be like it's the sort of like abusive dynamic, but it's her taking advantage of him. Mm-hmm. Cool. I like that, especially for this Arthur Fleck, or this Joker. Cool, but there was never any Jokers, so I guess I can't think that's a cool subversion of the Harley Joker dynamic. I guess the joke's on me.
That's part of why for me the ending doesn't work, because then it's like, what was even the point of the Harley Quinn of it all if that's where we were going? Right. And another sequence a sequence I did like in the third act. You guys may disagree, is when the courtroom's attacked and we get that big long take of that chasing. And I know this is multiple takes stitched together digitally, like it's not that impressive anymore, but I still thought it was a pretty enthralling sequence. I thought it was well executed.
Well, it was really exciting in the moment because I've been waiting for so long for anything to happen.
Well, yeah, and I guess so when that bomb went off, I was like, oh, this is the ending of the movie, like the big controversial ending. This is where it happens. So I sat up, I'm like, here we go. And then it is pretty effectively captured. I think there is some like early on, there's long tracking shots where he's just walking through Arkham. They're moody, they're effective, and it's kind of like a repeat of that. It kind of reminded me of the Batman or Ben Affleck opening of BVS, where he's kind of walking through the rubble of his own tower.
It also reminded me of the bomb in the courtroom in that very movie.
Oh yeah,
that also happens. But yeah, this has the same thing the first one does, where it's not. It's way too vague, not great material, elevated by production value. Like there's some really cool things that, like, I'm not talking as much about the things that are working with this, because like Robert said at the beginning, they're all kind of like disparate things in a vacuum, where it's like, if you showed me any number of clips to try to get me to go see this movie, I'd be like, this looks pretty cool. And then you put them all together and they're not adding up to anything. And then and that's because the whole thing is just kind of a big meta point at the end, which is so self-indulgent I can't be bothered to care. I'm sorry, I have things I want to talk about, but we got to get this. We got to get these super chats knocked out.
Yeah, that's fine.
Donnie St. Pierre, $5 super chat. But guys, of course, it's a musical. Arthur dances a couple times in the last movie. Remember, he has always had music in him, whatever that means.
Well, and I know I'm not alone here. When that's first announced, this is going to be a musical. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's different. And again, why I don't care about cinema score, where, again, this is my opinion. This probably isn't fair. You were obviously more insulted by this movie than I was. But when I see stuff like, oh, people love the first movie, hated it, I'm kind of like, oh, well, that's probably just because of the ending. Or a lot of people are like, oh, people just didn't like the music. Like, that was too weird for them. Like, I kind of assume it's for shallow reasons, which probably isn't fair, because as we've all discussed, none of us think this movie works. And then it's like, the whole lead up to this movie is so weird, because I'm kind of intrigued, but I didn't ask for it. And then they say it's a jukebox musical, and I'm like, oh, okay, so they're kind of going the laser out. And then they're saying it's not a musical, and they're just talk singing, which is true in a couple scenes. And I get your point that this isn't a Hamilton. This isn't like literally all the dialogue is sung. It's a musical where now there's the musical numbers, and then there's a normal movie in between. And for me personally, there's the first big musical number that Arthur has. I was like, I kind of like this, but it establishes really early on that this is all happening in his head and isn't literal.
And then there's places where it is.
And then there's places where it is. It's very inconsistent about that. And I'm like, man, if you're gonna go big, go big.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of like that one. Like, if you're gonna be that clear that this is happening in his head, carte blanche. Like, do whatever you want. Weirdly, because in my opinion, these are both very well photographed movies. I like the cinematography. Like, I like the production value. And then you get to the musical numbers, and that to me is like the most uninspired stuff in the movie in terms of how it's shot. It's just very basic and matter of fact. And again, I liked some more than others. And
there's bits where I really like it, like the stage stuff, like when they're when like Joker and Harley have their own show together, and
it looks cool.
She shoots him, like, that's good. The bit on the roof with the Arkham Hotel, I liked that. What's really frustrating about it for me, Robert, is Austin and I came up with a thing when we did the commentary the other day, that we kept wishing the movie had gone with, which is, if the idea was supposed to be that the Joker is the real Arthur and he finally pulls that out by the end, whenever he's like hallucinating or we get in his head, it'd be cool if he was wearing the makeup, if he was like already Joker, and we have the separation, not necessarily multiple personalities, but just this is the guy he wants to be, that's like begging to be let out, and then we finally get that at the end. And then this is sort of giving us that. It's inconsistent about it, because he's not wearing the makeup very much toward the beginning, but increasingly as we go along, this is the guy he wants to be or thinks he is, and then he finally is in a weird way redeemed, where he decides that he's got a lot of remorse for the killings in the first movie, and he doesn't want to be that guy, and he's realizing that there is a human being inside of him, and so he gives all of that up. And part of the reason that we get the Joker so much in his head is because that's the only place we can have it in this movie. It doesn't want to be a Joker movie. He kills 0 people in the entire movie. You have a movie with Joker in the title. He doesn't murder anybody, which is intentional, but I still don't like it.
Well, like you said, I think Lady Gaga is very good in the movie, but I found a lot of her songs pointless. Like, they're sung well, but they're just kind of reiterating the same point over and over again. If you're going there for the Lady Gaga show, she doesn't really get belted out a lot. like she's good. Like I think she's a great singer, but she doesn't get to go that big with most of her songs. I'm just like she has like 3 songs that I think you could have just condensed it to one, like, or one would have been enough to get that across. But my favorite song in the movie, and you guys may disagree with it because it sounds like the movie had already lost you by this point. Maybe it's just because it's where he gets to kind of be Joker, is the courtroom song, like the Joker, which is the obvious song to go with. But that was at least being creative with lighting and the scenery. I thought his performance was good. Like I don't think he's a great singer, but I'm not that picky when it comes to musicals. I like musicals. I'm pretty easily pleased with some of this stuff. So even if I don't think he's a great singer, I think it's performed well, and I liked the lighting, and the song choice is obvious, but it worked for me.
Let me get into the...
Even though she's not in it, like that was the standout.
Yeah, let me get into the quality of the singing for a minute, Robert, because I think you're looking at it in a way, you're looking at it wrong, and I think in a way the movie cannot decide how realistic it wants to be. Because, I mean, I just feel like sometimes we're giving this stuff too much credit. Like, I'm not sure Phillips always knows what's in somebody's head and what isn't. You've got interviews with Lady Gaga and with Phoenix where they're both saying they're intentionally not singing as well as they usually would, and making mistakes on purpose because their characters wouldn't be classically trained and be able to do those things. And to that I say, if it's in your imagination, you would sing brilliantly.
Right.
Every time. And a way to let us know would be to go back and forth. Would be to have scenes where Lady Gaga sounds like Lady Gaga and scenes where she sounds like Harley Quinn.
But I feel like they do kind of do that.
Do you?
Yeah. No,
I did
like
not have that.
When, like, because like it's like when they're singing like you know, Hallelujah, come on, get happy. It's like this like almost unbearable like high register like whisper singing where it's like the voice comes in and out, or like where they're in cells and they're like, they're singing like this.
No, I know.
And it's like grating, and then like later in the fantasies, it's like belting it out. That's true for Gaga. It's not true for Phoenix though, and that's what's interesting. And I think it's just because Phoenix isn't that great of a singer, and I think he's
still but he's still a better singer than that. He's doing it on purpose.
Okay. Have you seen Walk the Line?
Yeah.
Oh, I have. I've actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, no, he is a better singer than that. I've seen Walk the Line. Now I don't like Walk the Line, but.
But yeah, no, so like when it comes to the whole musical aspect,
there's not a frame in that movie where I buy him as Johnny Cash, but I don't care. Everybody, I know people think that movie's brilliant. I'll fight you all day long. I do not understand the love for that movie.
Are you excited for that? Are you excited for that same filmmaker doing a Bob Dylan biopic?
Yeah, it looks better.
Okay.
Than Walk the Line.
I've not seen.
I'll see that. That guy in trailers, there are frames where I sort of buy him as Bob Dylan. I don't have that. Anyway,
Timothy Chalamet.
I digress.
Yeah, but no. So I'll say like my 2 cents on the whole musical angle of it. That's like the first thing we heard about like when they were announcing it, and I thought that's really cool. In my heart, it would be really funny if the first Joker movie was sort of like Todd Phillips doing Taxi Driver, and then his sequels, he's doing New York, New York, which is the movie that Martin Scorsese directed immediately after Taxi Driver, also starring Robert De Niro, and it's about an abusive relationship, and it's a musical.
Yeah.
I would think that would be kind of funny. And I mean, I don't really like New York, New York all that much. When it becomes the Liza Minnelli show, it's friggin' awesome. And I think Lady Gaga and Liza Minnelli are very much cut from the same cloth. So it's kind of what I was hoping for going in. It's not that. That's okay. That's cool. But I think the musical angle is so half-hearted.
Right.
Aside from like 2 or 3 musical numbers, I couldn't tell you any of the songs they picked. There's the "I'm the Joker, Baby" song that he sings in the courthouse. That song, like that's one of the more memorable numbers. But it's like I remember the locations that they are having the musical numbers in more than I remember the songs or the way they were performed or anything. I remember where they're doing like a jazz club type of thing where it's the comedy club, but now it's a jazz club. And like I remember Phoenix doing like a tap routine. I liked that part. I think dancing is just cool in general, so I liked that part. But I don't remember what the song he was even dancing to even was. Like it was very it was a letdown to me. And like that was like I like the first song that Joaquin Phoenix sings, the Stevie Wonder song. I thought that was all right, but it's
Mhm.
like it's so much of it was just like the kinds of inflections they're doing in their singing is like the same thing. The what the songs are supposed to communicate about the dynamic is the same thing. And then furthermore, like they just keep happening. And so it's like the movie is, because it's rudderless, because it doesn't go anywhere, it's just stuck in like just doing the same, playing the same hand over and over and over and over and over again. And so it just became tedious. And that's disheartening because I do feel like the musical angle to, now maybe I could be wrong here, but I think Todd Phillips was just thinking about an average fan of the film Joker, thinking and then thinking, and maybe in a condescending way, those people don't like musicals, so I'm going to make a
Yeah.
musical. And then like he made a crappy musical, so it's like I wanted to see the musical.
So then
Like
once
I
again,
like the musical.
who's it for? It's not for people who
I
want
don't
that
know
or who don't want that.
Yeah, I'm
exactly.
with you. I like that tap dancing bit, and if we got river dancing, I would have flipped my son green, and I will not apologize for that.
I think part of the issue is that Harley Quinn is not at the forefront enough. So you kind of keep
I
Very
agree.
underdeveloped.
you kind of keep forgetting about, and doesn't have enough screen time. You kind of keep forgetting about the musical bit because I don't want to call her a footnote, but because the role she plays in the movie is just, again, fans that related too much to the Joker in the first movie, it doesn't have enough to say with her. Um, I don't know where else I'll put this point, so I'm just going to say this real quick, which is, I, Robert, just the more I've thought about this, the more irritated I've gotten about it, and I saw this a couple of days ago, so I've had more time for it to simmer than I usually do with these reviews, and I had this thought. I was like, what in the world, besides just having a big dramatic beat in the moment, was the point of Harley Quinn I lying about being pregnant? Oh, I know what the point was. The point was to make people that really liked the first movie think there was a backdoor for a third one, and then to steal that from them at the end. That was the only reason that was in the movie. That's what I think.
Okay, that's interesting. I like
Why
that
else would
scene.
you do that? Why in the story does she make that up?
Well, that's when I mean it's funny because
It
I don't know
doesn't
why
make
you
any
believe
sense that
her.
she would do that. And you can't just go, "Oh, she's crazy." Like she's a lot more like um like calculating and commanding than that. The lie she tells toward the beginning makes sense
Yeah.
because she's trying to relate to Arthur on a personal level. So she basically says, "I come from where you came from, and I've done a lot of crazy, horrible things like you, and I'm an anarchist. An anarchist. I want to turn the system over, like I think you do." All of that, or I guess, or maybe it's just live life on my own terms and be crazy, and whatever the angle is, because I don't know if she is even like the revolutionaries. I guess not, because she would be more in the 1% side, right?
Mhm.
Like she was raised rich, and we don't know that until later. I meant to say this earlier. I kind of like the angle of Harley Quinn has the questionable, ambiguous, where in the world did she come from backstory Joker usually has. Like, we know a little bit about her, but it's real in the air. Like, we know that she went to school to be a psychiatrist, and we know that she's got rich parents, but we don't know why she's so nuts. Like, something happened to her. Had to have. Like,
Mhm.
she's way too clear. Something clearly really traumatic happened to her at some point. I just think it's interesting that her background is so much more ambiguous than the Joker's is, which makes her feel more like the Joker.
Well, I liked the take they were going with her being lying and being manipulative, and her telling him like, "Oh, I'm pregnant," because she wants him to stay with her. That she wants to be together. Obviously, it's not going to last. It's not going to work. As she says later, it's just a fantasy. And I don't. That actually felt like a very Harley Quinn thing to me. Like, yeah, she would lie about being pregnant, or maybe I'm just being reminded of the Arkham games because that's what we did with those.
Oh my god,
Uh,
that's true. But it's just at that point she doesn't need to do anything to string him along. She's got him hook, line, and sinker already.
Well,
I'm not
he
getting
is,
what
he
the
is questioning.
I've seen it once. What am I? And I don't
Yeah,
want to do it again. But what am I missing with that?
Yeah,
So
take a car.
the lawyer was like, here's the thing, she's not who she says she is. This and this is her backstory. And then Joker or Arthur is talking to her like, you lied to me, didn't you? And so he's like kind of like questioning it, and
Is
then
it
she's
in
like,
that
oh
same
yeah,
scene
well,
that
I'm
she
preg-.
says she's pregnant?
Yeah, so it's a way
Okay.
to like kind of
All right. I still think possibly Philip's main motivation for doing that is to make the audience think there could be a third one. But
maybe, but no, you're right, it doesn't
Okay.
go anywhere. That's
it
a
doesn't.
problem.
Yeah.
And that's my problem, is because I've seen too many movies. So whenever I go into something where people are like, oh my god, the ending's nuts, or it pissed me off, or it's the worst, I always go to the most extreme, insane stuff, and I'm always let down. Where I was like, oh my god, this is gonna end with her giving birth to a baby with a Joaquin Phoenix face. This is gonna be insane. And that's not what we do.
Wait, have you, Robert? Have you seen The Substance yet?
I haven't, but I wanna.
Okay, the ending
I
of
don't know
that
if I'll get to.
is insane. So
I believe you. I've
okay,
heard enough that I believe you. But yeah, and then at the end again, spoilers. Did you guys find it weird that we didn't find out who the visitor was that was gonna see Arthur? Like, is that gonna be supposed to be tragic or whatever? Because when I'm watching the scene, I'm thinking like, oh god, is this gonna be Bruce Wayne? Like, is this gonna be something weird? Where are we going? And then he dies. It's like, oh, okay.
No, it's Robert. With respect, I think it's obviously a setup.
Okay.
That like it's several
maybe.
people in league together that have decided they're gonna get him killed, so they have an excuse to get him to get into the hallway. And they
You might
say,
be right. That's
"Oh,
not
you have a
right.
visitor. No, you don't. You're gonna get killed. Get what you effing deserve." Like I think they're just different people in cahoots.
But I also don't know. If
I've
they're
seen
doing
that
it
in movies
way.
100 times, right?
Oh, definitely. That's definitely a trope. But
Now you're right. In the
But-
moment, I was like, "Oh, who's this visitor gonna be? And are they gonna do some kind of like weird sappy thing where Harley Quinn comes back?" And then I'm like, "Oh no, they can't do that because then that would ruin the whole point of their character." Which is she's the audience that is disappointed that there is no real Joker, so that we'll be disappointed that there's no real Joker, so that we'll go to our car going, why did I bother with either of these?
Well, and your read on the scene probably makes more logical sense and is lamer. Because all I got out of that scene was, okay, so the guy, when the guy starts talking to Arthur, who we see a couple times earlier, who gets a couple close-ups, I'm like, okay, where are we going with this guy? What's the point of this? That stood out to me. So once he starts talking to Arthur, is when I'm like, oh, he's gonna kill him, and this is gonna be the real Joker. Okay, so I read it as just, oh, well, this guy's crazy and kills him, but if he's just like part of this orchestrated effort to assassinate Arthur, then that's even more lame. um, it's lamer than it
Yeah.
already was.
I didn't even notice that guy starts carving up his face at the end. Apparently,
I noticed
everyone
either.
else noticed. Yeah,
You know what
so
else I
did.
didn't notice? So
What's-
I'm watching the scene because I went to the movie and I paid my money and we were reviewing it, so I had to stay for the whole thing. And I'm watching the scene where I'm kidding. There's not really a place where I would have wanted to get up and walk out, but like there is a place about 20 minutes before the end where I'm like, is it really going to be this lame? Like, oh goodness. But anyway, so yeah, I'm looking at the scene where the courthouse explodes, and we see Harvey Dent, and I'm thinking, yeah, the really cutesy thing here would have been for him to get half of his face blown up. I'm actually really shocked they didn't do that. And then I left the theater and I was talking to Austin, who did not see the movie but reads up on things he doesn't watch. I don't know why Austin spends so much time finding out about things that he has no interest in actually watching, but okay. And Austin goes, so yeah, of course they did the Harvey Dent Two-Face thing, and I'm like, they did? Like, I was watching the movie and I didn't see that. Like, it must have been such subtle makeup. I didn't even see it.
I did, yeah.
I noticed it.
Yeah.
It also means nothing. They don't do.
Yeah,
there's no talk about
exactly.
duality. They don't do anything at all with Harvey Dent at all. Like, he's just there. His name could be anything.
Yeah, and I was just
Exactly.
indifferent to that. I thought the actor was fine. I was kind of whatever about it.
Yes,
I will say though,
he played regular lawyer person just fine.
I gotta say, I was a little disappointed with the casting in this one. The first movie, you know, behind every corner is a great character actor.
Because
There's
they all
Francis.
wanted to get to work with Joaquin Phoenix. And the difference is they don't necessarily want to be in a sequel to that movie.
Okay, that's possible, but like
Once that's
got
come out.
it's got Bill Camp and Shea Wiggum are like the detectives that
Yeah,
you know
she's great.
motivate a French Connection style chase. Then there's like Francis Conroy's his mom, and then Brian Tyree Henry is the clerk in Arkham. Like there's just great character actors all over the place. And this one, I'm like, who's gonna play Harvey Dent? Oh, it's just some guy.
Yeah.
Who's gonna play the judge? Some guy. Like, all right. At least like Catherine Keener is like his lawyer. I'm like that's kind of cool. But
And she's
like,
good.
yeah, she's fine.
Okay, do we want to talk about the split personality angle?
Not
that
yet.
I
Let
put
me
a
get
pin-
through these
oh,
super
okay.
chats because they're like a decade old. I got to run through these, and then we totally will. I promise, Robert. Chicago's Lover $5 super chat. I think it's mostly people in your circles. There are a lot of people who loved the first one and were still obsessed with it who hated this movie. Well, but we also kind of said that. Just people we know seem to be going back to this and not really liking it. Like I get that there are probably lots of people that still do. What we were saying was we're skeptical of how many because this isn't performing. So it might be more than we thought. And I also want to know how many people Chewbacca's Lover that are still obsessed with this movie are going back to it and have seen it recently.
Well, and also, what's also possible is the conversation around that movie was insane, and I hated every second of it.
Yeah.
From both people who loved and hated it, and everyone who made up their minds about, everyone who argued about the movie before it even come out, and all that was awful. That definitely fueled just interest, and I think a lot of people just saw that movie and thought it was fine, and just haven't gone back to it, and were kind of like, whatever about the sequel. I mean, now you're right that doesn't really work with me with how insanely well that trailer did.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
still,
I can't explain that.
Like I said, that's just my opinion. I think a lot of people saw that movie and thought it was fine, but maybe haven't come back to it much.
Also, apologies to folks to some of these comments that will be things we've kind of addressed. But Dan Schneider, $10 super chat. People said this movie and its ending was an FU to all the wrong people who liked the first movie, specifically young men who identified with Arthur. Is that fair or gross mischaracterization? I mean, I think it's just blatantly obvious that he's due. I think Phillips has all but come out and said that was part of the point of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know, like the cruelty this movie has towards Arthur, like almost like mimics the cruelty that the people in the first movie have towards him. Like it's weird, like they're like, he's a loser, he's an idiot. Look, he's a two-pump chump. Ha 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 ha. He doesn't know how to get it in. Ha ha ha. And I'm like, geez, this is like mean towards this character. And then like later on, it's like when I kind of lost my train of thought, but like it does have like a lot of those like weird. Oh, and I will say this, like regarding Harley, like it does seem to be like that's the stand-in for like the audience of my movie that I didn't like. All of my audience, all the people who liked my first movie were a bunch of affluent kids who wanted to LARP as people with mental handicap. I'm like, God, like that's so like cruel to paint so many people that way. And so it's like why? Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way. And like that first movie, I'm liking it less and less. But I said this the other day, I'm not offended by it. I found this kind of offensive. I don't know. Like I said, it's just kind of anti-entertainment. Like I don't know. Like I watched his movie and I enjoyed it, you know, mostly on a first viewing. But I don't know why I'm being penalized for liking the movie.
Well,
like I don't get that.
And I don't think it's playful at all. Like if it was playful,
Thank
about
you.
it, like,
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. Is like why can't we have more fun with it? And yeah, what I wanted to see to have more fun with it is this guy be a lot closer to, you know, maniacal fun. You never know what he's going to do, Joker, through the whole movie. But even with what we're doing, the audience could have enjoyed themselves more. Like,
and you know, like I know this is kind of like a movie that, has a very strong polarizing reaction whenever you want to bring it up. But like Barbie last year was playful. Now a lot of people found it obnoxious, but like I think it is trying to at least be playful in what it's trying to do. This
It
one
was a
does
it was a
feel
crowd pleasing movie for that audience.
sure. And so like this one though, like it does feel just angry and mean spirited without any of that verve. And like I don't like it does make for a very unpleasant
No,
viewing
those are good
experience.
comparisons because personally, and I'm never real comfortable talking about that movie because I really didn't like it, and I know there's some people that
Sure,
loved it. And
sure.
I don't want to ruin anybody's fun or whatever because there's certainly a lot of fun stuff in that movie. I did read some kind of like odd cynicism in that, but if you're having enough fun with the set dressing of it, that you probably don't notice it, or if it doesn't affect your sensibilities, it's probably just a good time. Like there's just this movie's not fun,
Right.
No.
and
Well, I also like dour, miserable movies, so like, that didn't bother me.
That's true. That's true.
yeah, but to do the kind of thing it's doing, I feel like maybe you have to have a bit of playfulness in it, or it just seems
Well,
mean spirited for no good
and you
reason.
could
I
have
like
that with the musical numbers.
because
Those
the
could have
first
gone
movie's
bigger.
not exactly fun either, but there is. We're gonna go in circles because I was gonna say there is kind of a sense of that classic like revenge thriller catharsis, but then I guess that's not what he thought he was after, so he's upset that anybody saw that in it. And I respond with that as BS. Obviously that was there. Like I don't know. I think he was fine with that seeming cathartic until too many of, in his mind, the wrong people came up and said anything about it.
Yes.
You know what part of the problem is for me with this too is I don't, despite what I do here on YouTube and that I have a show where I respond to some news articles. I'm really selective in what I keep up with, and one of the things I don't pay any attention to hardly at all is I have a little bit more recently here and there because I got back and I've dabbled in Twitter a little bit, but like generally speaking, and especially when this movie was coming, when that first movie was coming out, I don't look at memes. The we live in a society thing was completely over my head and still is to some degree. I don't look at what exactly all the social political arguments are and the vitriol and all of that. So when you make a movie that is responding to the way a whole group of people reacted to your movie, it's going to go completely over my head. I only know that because I read about it later. I don't know. You have to be too in the know about just what's going on right now, like finger on the pulse. Everything's weird now with computers in our pockets. Like everything is weird now.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Can we talk about Gary Puddles? Because I like Gary Puddles.
I've got to finish these super chats.
Okay.
Dubby. Okay, we did tackle that one already. Apologies. Dan Schneider's yellow super chat. Thoughts on them having Joker raped by guards? Everybody's making a big deal out of that, and I just have no interest in talking about it. I guess in my mind, it's just part of the mean spirited thing Connor's been talking about, where it's like they just this movie like hates this character, and we're supposed to sympathize with him a lot more even than in the first movie because he feels remorse at all these horrible things that are happening to him. In a weird way, he almost is more sympathetic because I feel like I almost get him better in this movie, but he's not what he was in the first movie, so I'm just not interested in it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
yeah, that scene is
it finally
miserable.
picked a lane. I guess I'll give it that.
Sure.
I don't like the lane.
Yeah, because what people would want out of this movie is, well, that's the scene when Joker goes crazy and kills those guys, and you get that audience catharsis for the cruelty, but you don't get that. What happens to him, and it's miserable, it's unnecessary, but it also happens off screen, so, like, I wasn't offended by it. It's not the thing that, like, stuck with me leaving the theater. It was just like, well, that happened. I'm
Yeah,
not defending that choice. I just have a strong reaction to it.
I mean, I could not think about Snyder when I was thinking about the implications of that scene, because it is a little ambiguous. Like you don't see it.
Yeah.
And when I say a little, I mean like 2% ambiguous. Like that's like immediately what I was thinking of when I was watching. Like you really did that in your movie. Like that's I think that's not something to be done lightly. And I think for something like this, it does
Sure.
kind of cross a line where it's like this is your anti-entertainment thing. Like that feels like it's crossing a line. And like
That's
I
fair.
was not offended by this movie. I wouldn't even say I was necessarily offended by that. Like I just it takes a lot, like a lot to offend me. And so like I was just like it felt so strange, like as a choice to like put that word. It's like, and then not only that, but immediately after that, the guards murder another inmate, also off screen, but you hear it happen, and I'm
Yeah.
like, why are we like this is just a subplot. Like, why
Mhm.
are we going to this place in a subplot, and then it ultimately doesn't affect anything else in the movie? And like, it was so, like, yeah, I don't know, like it was meaningless, and that's I think what makes it feel mean spirited for the sake of it.
Bob the Hunt Fighter, the super chat. Why is antagonizing the audience admirable? People are paying to see the movie. If you want to do that, make it free and put it online.
Because it's fun. It can be.
Yeah,
It's like the complete. Yeah, it's the.
I'm sort of
like,
with him on this, Connor. Like this is one of those places where I guess it's just subjective humor. Like, I get sometimes the meta thing of like being tongue in cheek and almost antagonizing the like the system or the studio system or that sort of thing. It's part of the reason that I like that last Matrix movie more than a lot of people. And I was thinking about that watching this movie, where this has a little bit of that, where it's like, well, if this has to be done, let's make a movie about why maybe this shouldn't have been done in a way. You know, it's kind of doing
sure,
that again.
yeah.
But that was
Well,
so tongue in cheek about it. And if it's antagonizing anything, it's Warner Brothers. And that's that classic Matrix, like, you know, rah rah, F the system, anti-establishment thing. This feels like I'm being penalized. Why is that funny? I don't understand that. And
so
and and like it's that, you know, subverting expectations for no good reason thing, which irks me.
sure, no, and like I get it. Like on paper, the whole antagonizing the audience thing, it's a completely counterintuitive thing. And I think like the reason why I can find it appealing is because it is a high wire act. If you can pull it off, then it's awesome.
Mhm.
Like, and then
But I
that's what
don't
I think.
think so. I don't watch a lot of the kind of movies you watch, Connor, and I can't name an example where I feel like it stuck the landing with that. And I feel like whenever I've seen it done, it's probably gone over my head where I didn't get what it was doing. Like I feel like
Sure,
this is a kind of humor where you've got to be in the know and like that kind of thing already. Almost. I feel like there's a prerequisite for it.
maybe, but like it's something like I discovered about my tastes. I don't know. I feel like for so much of it, it's like maybe I'm just like
I'm just trying
predisposed
to
to enjoy
understand you,
that.
Connor.
Okay, but because it's the complete opposite of being pandered to. It is like it is anti-pandering, and like I find because it's such an uncommon thing, I do kind of find it interesting when
I
it's
get that.
instead of it being so eager to please me by doing the most look, I like the thing you like. Like I don't want a movie to be like a creepy stalker that wants to like the same things I like. It's going to be like, you know what? I don't even care if you're watching this movie. In fact, if you are, I don't even like you. I'll be like, oh, now you have my attention. And if you actually can say something interesting with this kind of a thing, then you have like my admiration. So like,
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
fair. I
That's
mean,
where I come at it from.
I've said that a lot where you shouldn't necessarily. I have liked things that don't seem to care if anybody is watching, but where I don't get it, I think, is I feel like when you do that, you got to be making a thing that at least you love and you would want to watch, and that can start to feel self-indulgent. What's self-indulgent about this is it feels almost like trolling. Like I don't get why he would have fun looking at this. That's what I'm not getting.
Yeah.
It's almost like not just anti-entertainment, but like anti-golden rule or something. You know, where it's like do unto
Yeah.
others. It's like what's supposed to be, you know, interesting about this is that even he wouldn't want to watch this movie.
Right.
I don't get that.
I don't get it either.
Okay.
Well, Connor brought up Gremlins 2 earlier, which isn't necessarily that movie, and I love Gremlins 2, but it's like it's trying to be both just a fun, basic Gremlins movie for people who just want more Gremlins movies, and it wants to make fun of Warner Brothers and make fun of that first movie, and it didn't do well. A lot of people didn't like it. I avoided it for a long time because it did have a bad reputation for a while, and then at some point people figured out the joke.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do with that comparison, because it's like that movie is also just trying to be a fun, entertaining Gremlins movie. Like you said, this movie's not trying to be fun. Austin's in the chat, and he also brought up Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2,
Yes.
which, and I'm going to disagree with him a little, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 comes out after that glut of slasher movies, and because people asked for it, because it's like, all right, here you go, I'm going to be stupid and wacky for it, and it didn't do very well. It grew a cult following over time, and I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Me too.
I don't know if I'd say that movie hates its audience. It's certainly for a type of horror audience, but it wasn't made necessarily for the people who love that first movie, because it's doing a very different thing. It's not the sequel a lot of people wanted. He was like, okay, I'm going weird and wacky with it, and maybe that's what you do with this movie, like with the musical numbers. Maybe you go more weird and wacky, like that's where you go bigger. If that's what you're gonna do, then like you said, make it so miserable. It's trying to be both a meta satire and be really, grim, dark, serious drama. So I don't know.
Here's my headcanon, okay? You get to the end of the first movie, and he says, and he's got this joke in his head, and he says you wouldn't get it. And my headcanon now is going to be the joke is the entirety of this movie, and this is not actually in canon or a thing that really happened. He just imagined this in the moment.
That's fair. And I should say the opposite side of the coin, though, is if you're doing the antagonize the audience movie and it sucks, well, then you get Joker Folie Deux. So
Yeah.
there you go. Like,
Yeah.
it's not fun for anybody. So like I recognize that.
Well,
like,
I'm not trying to fight you on what you like, Connor. I'm trying to say, like, right now the antagonize the audience thing. All I can think about is this movie, and I got to look at like other examples, because I'm going, I don't get what that done well looks like right now.
No, I get it.
Like, I can't imagine
This does not
it.
do it well.
Here
And-
in the moment.
Obviously I'm in the minority here, but that's just not how I felt for most of this movie, even if it fizzled out and underwhelmed me, and I don't think it works. Like I maybe it's just because I like grim, miserable movies, but like I'd watch. This is not a movie I'm going to revisit often. I don't know if I buy this on Blu-ray, and I know you don't want to buy this on Blu-ray, but it's like I wouldn't go see this in theaters again. But yeah, I'd watch this again. There's some scenes I like. There's some performances I like, even if I know where it's going and now it's going to let me down. Like, yeah, I'd watch this movie again, but then that would probably be enough for me. Because again, there's enough pieces in here I enjoyed or got something out of, where I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that went nowhere. Oh, that was interesting. Oh, that went nowhere.
I will say, because I
That's
want
just
to
how
give this credit where it's due, if there was just back on a story level, if this was something else, there is something to the character arc here with somebody who seems to be like totally insane, or at least can't relate to other people, and doesn't have empathy, to then have a light switch moment and go, oh, now I get why what I did is awful. And this goes to the puddles thing you wanted to talk about, Robert. It doesn't work as a sequel to that movie, or as being a thing that is like Joker related, because I don't get why this is Joker. But I do like, again, in a vacuum, or if this was something else, what this has to say about individual fantasy. That everybody has a picture of what they want and expect their lives to look like, and everybody has a mask that they want to put on to show the world, and his is just backwards and perverse, and he realizes that it's not the thing that he should have been putting on, but that is a very real relatable idea. I like what it has to say about, like individual fantasy. I just don't like it in this.
Sure.
And I don't like it as a retcon with that first movie.
I think
There's something there, though.
Yeah, and I think where the puddle scene might is, and part of the enjoyment I got out of it, it's besides the musical numbers, it's the only scene where he kind of gets to play Joker. I found I like some of the dark humor in that scene, and it's very tragic. Like, that guy is so good. I want to see him in more stuff. He gives a great performance in that scene, and the Puddles name joke, like, is that really your name? Like, that was kind of working for me. But then where we end with that scene, like you said, is an interesting idea in theory, but maybe not as a Joker movie. When the point of that scene is, oh, now Arthur feels bad and regrets his actions, which is not where we thought this was gonna go, and certainly not where we thought we were going at the end of that first movie. So that's kind of the best and worst thing about it, is, like you said, in a vacuum, I like this. And there's still a lot I like about that scene, mainly the performances, but it's also like, oh, this is when the movie firmly decides, oh no, Arthur Fleck is not the Joker. He regrets his actions and his tragic character. And now this is a tragedy, because now this is his arc. And yeah, that's where I could see the movie losing you. Certainly.
Yeah, I guess
But the idea is interesting.
The best scene of both movies concerns Gary Puddles, because I think the best scene in the first Joker movie is the part where he lets Gary go. And
I like that scene too.
Because like I think like that's the thing that motivated me to think about what's a better version of a Joker, and it's about a guy who just gets rewarded for being cruel, and like that scene is kind of cruel to that character, because he's like a little guy, and like that's just naturally how he is, and it's like he's stuck in the situation, he can't get out of it just by himself, and he's at the whim of this like person who, if he wanted to, could exert his power over him. Like it's a terrifying scene, and yet there's a cruel sense of humor to it that you can't not notice. And like that's legitimately kind of a great, like, it's not subversive, but like transgressive scene. And having that kind of come back to sort of unravel what was supposed to be transgressive in this movie is a compelling through line. And as a scene, it really works because the acting is very, very good. But yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, then the rest of the movie happens, and I find it unsatisfying.
It feels like if that's gonna be the point of your movie, like that maybe should have happened earlier. I don't know. Again, you could have cut a lot of this movie.
It's hard to say because your pacing gets so wonky because of the random musical numbers and all of that. But the arc of like Joker and Harley's relationship can't be what it is if that happens any earlier.
Sure.
Like, that's the only problem with that.
Yeah.
Is like,
well, and again,
it's actually kind of contrived in a way to happen when it happens so that she can turn on him in the third act. Did you guys feel like that relationship was like too rushed or anything, or does it work just because of like the context of how completely out of touch he is and how calculating she is? Like, I think that probably works okay.
Well, yeah, in the context of this movie, we have decided, oh, Arthur is an incel and is still a sad, pathetic loser, so of course he's going to fall for her that quickly. But if you're just extrapolating from the end of the first one, where he's supposed to be full Joker, then yeah, that's too rushed and doesn't work. So I
think we just have to operate from the premise of we've started over with this in a way, and we're kind of working backwards. I mean, like I said, I was hoping to get some revelations in this that would flesh out some of the stuff that I felt like the movie was at odds with in the first movie, and it kind of tries to do that with things like retroactively saying that Arthur's mother made up a story about him being put on Earth to make people happy, and then behind his back made fun of him for trying to have a career in comedy because he's not funny. It's trying to go back in and flesh some of that stuff out, but I feel like we're looking at sort of a different interpretation of the character now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like from a character perspective, it makes sense because like he just had one halfway awkward but kind of positive interaction with a woman in an elevator, then he's already like creating a fantasy about her in his head.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I guess from a character perspective, in the sequel, like doing that is fine. But I think from a pacing standpoint, it is very rushed because there's not really anywhere to go.
Okay.
They're like, we're in love. And then like,
Mm.
okay, for the next hour, there's no really any place for this to go. It's just kind of operating at the same level.
Yeah, you're right. We're not developing a relationship.
And then at the end, when she says, "Oh, this was just a fantasy," and she leaves, then I just don't know what to do with it because I don't know what her end game was.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess she just wanted to run away with him and kill a lot of people and, have crazy nutso adventures, which is very Harley Quinn.
Yeah, and if she's just craving that 15 minutes of fame, that's fine. But
Yeah.
just do more with it.
Well, I thought where this was going is okay, she's obviously pulling a number on him. She's gonna like come out and like write a book, she's gonna do this, she's gonna do that. And
And
then
the
big twist
movie's
was
oh, go on. Sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, the movie's really trying to make you think this is gonna end with her killing him.
Yeah.
And that's what he's worried about.
And then the big twist is nothing.
Yeah.
They do nothing.
Someone
She
else
does
is
nothing.
going to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what it should have done?
It still would have pissed a lot of people off, but it might have been better.
Well, what you could have done is she kills him, and then in this universe, basically, she's the real Joker. And
Or her baby is the real Joker.
yeah, if there was one. Okay, we're
Joker baby is just a fantasy.
we're 2 hours in. I don't know where all the time went. I apologize if we've been in circles a little bit. I'm finding this material kind of difficult to get my mind around and talk about. But I want to give you my pitch. And I don't know that.
Okay.
This is one of those things where retroactively, if this is what Phillips had done, I don't know if I would have liked it, but I feel like it would maybe be a way to get away with at least convincing me there was any reason for this to ever still be DC stuff. So it would still require retconning, but we're already doing that, so why not? So before I get into the whole pitch, the first thing I want to say is. Or the first part of this is, I think maybe Harley Quinn should have been the Aizen character in this movie.
Okay.
Even still with Joker in the title. Because it's partly just because I find myself, even though she's kind of thinly drawn, I just kept thinking I'd rather be following her with this. And if you wanted to do some social commentary, and there's legitimate stuff to talk about with this, not just the trolling the audience because you're upset that people related to the Joker at the end, but like actually exploring a character who is a like fanboy or fangirl for a horrible serial killer. Get into the true crime of this. I like the idea of the TV movie and the meta thing of the first movie kind of standing in as the TV movie. Like that was cool. And it also would be kind of a neat commentary on the character of Harley Quinn herself in real life. Because there have over time been way too many people that again kind of romanticize her and romanticize that relationship, and having that character herself be somebody that like worships the Joker, which is where that character starts in the first place. That social commentary is already kind of there a little bit, but taking it all the way to she saw him on the news and got herself committed so she could be close to him. That's a really good starting point. I like all of that. And wouldn't we have been slapped in the face in a good way if this movie opens with her doing that? Like, don't make that a reveal. Just let us follow her and then get to Arthur maybe 20 minutes into the movie. I'm saying all this again retroactively because I didn't like this, but that's a notion. My other notion is, what if we got really meta with the whole Joker Batman of all of this, and we found out that there's a key component with the first movie that we were not let in on, or that we weren't aware of, because we have a character who is like hallucinating some and who is not fully aware of what's real and what isn't. And we find out that he actually lives in something closer to the real world where DC and Batman are fictional things that you can go out and read about. And that he's actually inspired to become the Joker by comic book Joker.
That's an idea I had too, or thought I had. It's like that. Isn't that what they do? Kind of look like the new Matlock show.
That's exactly what the new Matlock show does. Yeah,
I had that thought,
which is
precisely
the only thing I liked about that pilot, besides her, because that's Kathy Bates. She's great, but I didn't love that script. But I thought that was kind of a fun take on that, fun twist on that.
Well, I was listening to the Captain Logan show where you were talking about that, and then I couldn't not think about that while watching these Joker movies, and I actually did have a similar thought of, what if what Cap was talking about with Matlock? What if that's what they did here?
Yeah, and we just didn't realize that he was, and like he maybe didn't quite realize it. And then we draw the curtain back, and everybody's talking about like, you know, Arthur Fleck is real derivative. He takes the Joker from comics and he becomes the Joker. And it's interesting to set that in the early 80s too, because this would be a pre-89 world where the last thing anybody really paid attention to in pop culture with Batman is a campy version where the Joker's not that scary. And he kind of shows everybody the scary Joker again before we actually do it with 89.
Well, and what if that opening Warner Brothers cartoon, instead of being a recap of the first movie, was a in-universe Joker cartoon from the 40s that he maybe saw when he was a kid?
Sure, yeah. See, that could have been great. And then you would have a really great excuse for why you had like Bruce Wayne's parents get killed in the first one, and why that does not matter anymore with this, and why the Joker's going to die at the end and never actually face off with Batman, and like forget the whole maybe he inspires somebody else to be the Joker thing. Just say there never was a Bruce Wayne and that was in his head, and or maybe like the whole Thomas Wayne thing is actually some other politician that in his head he's casting as Thomas Wayne, and that kid that he deals with isn't actually Bruce Wayne, and so then when you get to the end and we like retroactively, it would actually make an editing thing with the first movie make more sense to me, which is, and yeah, I get it, I'm rewriting the movie, but I think there's a way to make some of this more interesting, or at least make me have any appreciation for this being DC at all, which would be, you get to the end and he's got again that bit where he tells the psychiatrist you wouldn't get it, and when we flash to Bruce seeing his parents murdered, that's all in his imagination, and he's been imagining the whole movie that he's dealing with actual Batman and that he's the actual Joker, like creating that origin story. I don't know. It's something. I kind of wish they'd done something like that. It would at least justify the DC of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would have flipped the board and still would have pissed off a lot of people, but I like your pitch a lot. I think it is a lot more interesting. And
I don't know if I would have liked it either, but I would have liked it better than Naz.
And people were saying in the live chat earlier that allegedly there was a version of this ending shot where Harley kills him, and that was a reshoot. I can believe that.
Okay.
This feels like a movie that has like 5 different endings, and this is the one they picked. But you know,
well, it has no direction, so of course it could end any way they wanted. And that first movie is made with Phoenix, like in every scene reacting 5 completely random contradictory ways, because they don't actually know what direction they want to take their story. So like that's not shocking at all.
And with this take on Harley, that just is the more natural conclusion, you know, for her. Of course, her 15 minutes of fame ends with her killing Joker. I mean, Mike Ermichuk would disagree with that, because just because you shot Jesse James doesn't make you Jesse James.
That's true.
But I digress.
Right.
It just feels it's something, and what we got was nothing. And where I think the movie is trying to either troll you or make you think, and we haven't mentioned this yet, is before he has his last goodbye with her and she says it was just a fantasy and leaves him, no one else witnesses that. You know, after she leaves, the cops show up and arrest him. The last time we see her before that, one of the few times in the movie where allegedly from her perspective is her pointing a gun to her head, and then we cut away. Are we supposed to theorize that she actually killed herself and he's just imagining that final
I
conversation?
wondered about that.
Are we supposed to be
I wondered why
that?
she decided not to go through with that, or if she was just kind of thinking about it. And then when she comes to him in that cell, and we're supposed to think later that she impregnated him then, or that he impregnated her then, and then it turns out that's not the case. I kept thinking, like, that's got to be in his head. I don't see how she gets away with getting in that cell. And okay, this is interesting. If you're right, Robert, well, I was going to say it's possible that all the stuff about the pregnancy was in his head the whole time, I guess, because it could be like they didn't actually have sex. He imagined that. And
it
then
would be consistent with the
and then when you get to the end,
middle.
if she's dead, it's a fictitious version of her telling him that the pregnancy was fake. Right?
Okay.
That's what would be happening there. I mean, like, this is all really gimmicky and sensational in the wrong way. I'm not saying it's good or anything, but that maybe because otherwise I don't get what Connor, help me out here. I don't get what the gun thing was about.
Your guess is as good as mine. I'm staying out of this one because I don't know.
Connor goes, I don't care. Connor, fix this movie, man.
Don't make it. Get a DeLorean. There you go.
Well,
Get a DeLorean.
Where I just don't know what's real and what isn't anymore is their very first interaction is her seeing him in the hallway and doing the finger gun thing to her head.
Yes, is that real? Because if it's not,
possibly known about.
No,
it's
but
ridiculously
unless,
convenient that she would think of that.
Yes, it is.
TV movie? You're gonna say TV movie.
TV movie was the thing I thought about.
Okay, because Zazie Beetz' character would have mentioned that probably.
Yeah.
So okay.
And also to all those people who said it's nothing like Taxi Driver. It's a literal lift from the film Taxi Driver.
It is.
So.
It is. I just watched that for the first time last week, and I can confirm that is true. But here's the thing. I wanted to see a clip from it.
Yes,
okay,
this is the thing I've been
wanting
wanting to say. Yeah.
Okay, we're all on the same page here.
Yes.
Show the movie. Cast Luke Wilson as Arthur. Be fun with it. Do something.
No, I'm so glad you said that because I was like, a lot of the fun. It's like in Scream when you see like, oh, Parker Posey is playing Courtney Cox. Great, that's awesome. Like, yes.
And Luke Wilson's Billy Loomis.
Yes.
His jokes are better when you explain them.
His jokes are always funnier when you explain them.
But no,
I still can't get over the fact that Penguin basically says that in the pilot. It's so good.
So yeah, no, I was hoping that we would get like a stab of the Joker movie, and you can have a lot of fun with the production of it.
God,
a low budget TV movie that would be fun. Like, come on.
But to quote Austin, is this movie too up its own ass in that it doesn't want to do that because the first movie is supposed to be the TV movie? You see what I'm saying? Like, maybe they would have never gone there because that's what we're supposed to be kind of imagining. And then could you even taking that further? Is it possible that Phillips wants to use the excuse? Sorry, I'm trying to formulate this thought. That Phillips wants to use the excuse, we've mentioned a TV movie, and so if you imagine that the movie the actual movie we watched in the first place was a TV movie, then any characterization that is contradicted in this movie from that could be explained away by that's not really what happened. We were watching a fictional version.
That.
Yeah, no, me too. But
this
is how pretentious I think this guy is.
Yeah, I know, but I believe you though. Like, I wouldn't put it past that. Like I do think that would be a way to do some hand-wavium.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let me read these other super chats. Zarathustra, the flick asks some compelling questions regarding the first film, but doesn't have the balls to flesh any of them out. Movie looks amazing though. And Connor, do you agree that the production value and just cinematography and stuff is on par with the first, or do you think there's any kind of step down in quality? Because you kind of look at movies differently than me. So I was watching this going, I think this looks great. I wonder what Connor thinks.
It's a very good looking movie. You know, they like, I don't know how Joaquin Phoenix starves himself to have no muscle in his back. That's insane. But like, um, you know,
You
it
can't say
does
he
look.
phoned it in.
No,
No,
he
You
I
know?
said that
didn't.
earlier. You can't
Um,
say that.
but like, yeah, no, like the costumes are great. The like the set, like that courtroom set looks great. I love the lighting in that. It looks like
Mm.
Janusz Kaminski lit those scenes. Like it's great. I love the sort of Guillermo del Toro style digital cinematography of these movies where they're very like wide lensed on like the exteriors. It makes everything look so big. Like I love the you know how dilapidated Gotham looks on the exteriors. Like it's one of those things where like I think the Joker movies are a very good way of kind of highlighting the difference between a well-produced movie and a well-directed movie, because I think the
Sure.
production is, and of course directing goes into this as well. I don't think Todd Phillips is a complete hack, but like you look at something like these two movies together, and I think it is a very consistent thing, and it makes me look back at the first Joker movie and go, dang, that was 60 million? Like really? Like
Yeah.
Hmm.
impressive. So yeah.
What did
Oh
Lady
yeah.
Gaga get paid for this is my question, because I mean that $60 that $60 million price tag with the first movie, 1/3 of that went to Phoenix. I mean, he made
Yeah, I don't
20 million
know.
for that movie. It only cost 60.
Yeah, and a lot of people are assuming like, oh, half the budget must have gone to her. I don't know. That seems like something she wanted to do, but like if she's demanding a price that high and you're making a troll movie, maybe don't get Lady Gaga.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and
That's
Well, and
that's the other thing
that
though,
that's
is
the
like I
that question goes back to what Connor was saying earlier, which is where did all the money go though? I mean, that's why people are going to that. Is it doesn't, like, it looks good, but it doesn't look that much better. Like, it doesn't look 200 million. Where did all the money go? What did you?
right.
A
Oh
lot of it
yeah,
takes
like
place in a prison.
well, like this budget is way too high for the movie we got. But again, some of the productions I did like, like the Arkham set. I love how much we got to walk through it and feel the real geography of it. It's not just random disparate rooms. Like a lot of
Mhm.
it's for real, and you get to explore it. And I really enjoyed that stuff. So it's like, yeah, I
That's
could see
true.
some of the movie, but this is like $100 million movie max. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I know that Lady Gaga has done like a whole tie-in album. I don't know if that's a part of it. I don't
Apparently,
know.
that's something she just did on her own. That doesn't. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think it's like official marketing. It's not
I
something
don't
that like
know.
Warner Brothers made her do.
Right. That's right.
Okay. But the other thing is, it's like I know that like I don't know what Lady Gaga's rate is. I can't, it can't be that high because it's like she's in like four movies. She was
Mhm.
in she was in Sin City 2. She was in A Star Is Born. She was in House of Gucci, and then it's this. Unless I'm missing something. Maybe she was in another one of Robert. Maybe she was in Machete Kills.
No,
I
you're
don't
probably
know.
right. She
But
probably
like,
doesn't even command what Phoenix does or anything, or necessarily anything close. But where did all the money go?
I don't know. I mean, it's
Is that
long.
part of the
Like maybe
joke? Is that somehow, Connor, part of the trolling and the joke with this, where it's like we're with the first movie, it's just 60 million. We're showing you can make sort of like an art house movie out of a comic thing, and then the sequel is going to also sort of be like that and be really counterintuitive and be even oddly less commercial than the first movie was, but it's going to cost way more because it's a sequel that only got greenlit because of how huge that first movie was.
maybe
I mean, I'm
maybe
kidding. I
I
don't
don't.
know why you would make the price tag part of the gag, but it just feels like that.
But was it a thing where it was like Warner Brothers says we're willing to give you up to $190 million to make your movie, and then they said okay. Like
I can
Well,
believe
how
that.
much did
It's Warner
he
Brothers.
get paid? That's a question. What did
that's a good
Phillips
question.
pocket?
I don't know.
And how much? I'm just kidding when I say this.
Wait,
I was going to say,
hold
how
on,
much
hold on,
did,
hold on.
did he
How
did
much?
he
How much did the first movie cost?
60?
60. What's the difference? Maybe he pocketed that.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm being unfair and just joking when I say this, but I was gonna say maybe he told Warner's it was gonna cost a certain amount, and he just kept some of that. It didn't all actually go into the movie.
I don't know. You know what though? I will say this about Todd Phillips: the dude knows how to make a good-looking movie, like all the time. Like you go back to like the Hangover movies, and like that's at a time. I mean, to this day, like
Oh, sure.
comedy movies look like YouTube videos, like, and
Yeah.
like the first Hangover movie is shot on film, like it looks like a really cinematic film, like it's a beautiful looking movie.
Yeah, that's
You
during the
kind of
disaster movie days. It was
yes,
bad.
and now we don't even make comedy movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but like it was just a thing where like even like The Hangover Part 2 is it's a really good looking movie. So the man knows how to make comedy movies that look like really cinematic, and so he knows how to make a good looking movie. And yeah, I wonder where all the resources went. I think that's going to be a common question that a lot of people might have with this.
It all went into that explosion, I guess. Austin says.
Well, and then also, how expensive was the Marvels? This looks so much better than the Marvels.
It does.
So, I don't know.
Austin says Phoenix
agree.
got 20 million. She got 12. That's what he read.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense.
And that's still a relatively small fraction of a $200 million budget. Like,
oh, and Austin claims that he got half the budget. And you know what? Austin told me the story, and I forgot all about it. He says Warner Brothers said he could have $200 million for the movie, and asked how much of that he wanted for his salary. He responded half.
I mean, I kind of respect that.
Hey, if you can negotiate that,
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing better than most
But
people.
but if
Blame
that's
Warner Bros. For
true,
that.
Connor, if that's true, it's so much funnier if he's splitting hairs between 190 and 200. if he's going, no, I didn't cost 200, it only cost 190.
My pocket knows the difference.
And
all right?
then this would be the ultimate. I would like this movie. I would flip my sign green if he did a TikTok or a YouTube short where he had a mountain, because they're gonna build it. They're gonna build a mountain where he's got a mountain of cash that he got from making this movie. It's half of $190 million. He lights it on fire and he says, I'm only burning my half.
Yeah.
If he made that, I'm flipping my sign green.
Cap, it's really funny that you worked that around into a Dark Knight reference, because Austin just explained that it was just a joke. He was just making a Dark Knight reference.
Oh, is that all he was doing?
Yeah.
I wish it was true, though. I do wish it was
out.
true. I thought he told me that as a legitimate story. Maybe that was one of those things
It's
where
Austin,
he
Cap.
also
You can't
told me.
believe anything he says.
No, I just mean like before this video. Like I think he said that to me at some point, and I probably thought it was true. It doesn't even sound that far out of the realm of possibility. You only burned his half.
So, Cap.
Everything that just happened just now is as convoluted and confusing as this is. Connor, I'm sorry. Go ahead. And then I'm going to read the rest of the super chats, and then we're going to get out of here. We've been here 2.5 hours. I don't know why we're still talking about this movie. Sorry, Connor, go ahead.
No, just read super chats.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something profound.
No, I was gonna say. Okay, I was just gonna ask you. So, 90 to 95 on the top 100 best superhero movies of all time. Like, where are we at?
I mean, the first movie didn't even make my list.
Okay.
I don't mind revealing that. Bob the Hun. I get, so he's still on about this. I'll just read both these super chats back to back. I get if you have your vision and people might like it or might not, but why is it okay to try to give me a bad time on purpose when I'm paying money? I'm not talking about not caring what people think. I mean deliberately trying to give someone a bad time. I'm paying $11. It seems really pretentious.
I never said it wasn't pretentious.
Well, I think he's mostly fighting Connor on just the idea that you can do that kind of thing effectively. But again, Connor's not really talking about what this did.
Hey, I go to the movie theater on a pretty regular basis. I don't have a lot of sympathy for general audiences. I think Connor and I are a bit more cynical on this subject.
Yeah, but like part of it's not like I want like a general audience to suffer or anything. It is solely for my amusement.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, like, I do have, like, I guess just weird taste. Like, I like shaggy dog jokes. I like it when I'm like 10 minutes into a Shaggy Dog joke and I realize that I'm the fool, like the joke is on me. I find that amusing. I think it's funny when I get got. And so part of the fun of those kinds of movies is when you're watching it and there's that sense of discovery of, oh, they're kind of throwing it. Okay. Like, I don't know. I do find an appeal to that. It's hyper niche and it's, like I said, very counterintuitive. And it's like, like what Bob the Hun kind of outlines. Like, I'm paying $11 and you're like making me like suffer for it. Like, yeah, no, you're right. Like, that's, it shouldn't work. And I have sympathy for people who don't like it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's maybe a difference between. I'm not going to stay on this too long. And there's maybe a difference between what you're talking about, where it's like, you know, flipping the script, the joke's on you. You didn't think this is what you were watching all along. But I think you can still come back and make that in some way satisfying at the end. It feels like the point of this was to disappoint people, which I really feel like is not the same thing you're talking about.
You're right. It's probably not. And like I said, like with this one in particular, I think it's a bad version of that. So if you're even going to call it the same thing, I think it's a bad version of that. But I think you might be right that it is kind of a different thing.
Well, and that's what I was getting at with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 earlier, and that like that is made for a certain type of horror audience as entertainment, but it's still not made for some of the people who loved that first movie. It is an anti-sequel in many ways. It just depends on your personal sensibilities, and if you can be with the joke. So I don't know.
Yeah, and also there's a difference between being niche, where again the audience is really small, but it reflects the filmmaker, versus this where I can't figure. It's not even niche. Like I can't figure out what that audience is.
Todd Phillips didn't even make this for himself.
That's what I'm saying. W, Twin Peaks: The Return, perfect example of trolling the audience. Goodly Ben Affleck. I don't know what that means.
I haven't seen it yet.
Well, I don't know why you said Ben Affleck at the end.
W always talks about Ben Affleck. I don't know.
Okay.
But no, Twin Peaks season 3 has a lot of Twin Peaks scenes like have scenes where they know what the audience is expecting or wanting, and then there will be like a scene that's just dragging something out. And I find that kind of sense of humor funny, but I don't know. I also feel like that does ultimately have a satisfying destination, but it's just not exactly where you would, first instinct want it to go. So.
Well, this gets into that realm of you got to understand the rules before you break them, and I'm not convinced that this guy really knows how to tell a conventional story, so he's not the kind of person that should be telling an unconventional one. At least just based on these. I mean, I haven't seen his other stuff. W $1.99 because it's so much fun. Cap, get it? Yep, I get it. I don't think I get it actually. Dan Schneider, it is sort of crazy that someone was given money to insult paying customers and make them pay for something they would hate. Why is this okay? Yeah, and we've kind of run this into the ground at this point. But thanks for the super chat. W, Coppola asked to be paid $1 million to direct The Godfather Part 2. I'm not sure why that's relevant, but that's the interesting factoid.
Well, yeah, no, that's like the history of like he didn't want to make a sequel, and they said we will give you anything you want to do, and he's like, I want $1 million to direct a movie.
Oh, because he didn't think that they would go for that. Well, I just relative to this, like I didn't, and obviously that's a million years ago, but like I don't even know how much that movie cost in the first place. So like,
right, yeah.
I didn't know if that was supposed to be a lot. Mentally ill loner John Kelling. I used to think my life was tragedy, but now I realize it's an effing musical. That's great.
That's good.
And then he wants to know when we're doing a commentary on this. I actually said this.
Sing-along commentary.
I actually said this to Austin right after I saw this. I was like, we have lots and lots of superhero movies to tackle for the commentary project. This one's not happening till I'm 90. Okay, what else have we not hit, guys?
This isn't a major point. We touched on it a little bit, but again, the pieces here that I like are trying to comment on, the sensationalism of serial killers, like you said, the true crime of it all, the first televised trial. I thought that stuff was interesting. That we were obviously going for a Ted Bundy thing with him, with his
Yes.
fangirls and him representing himself. I just wish that's what more of the movie was, because when it's all said and done, that's a very small part of it.
And doing
But
that in a Batman universe where we did stuff with the Batman stuff would be cool. Like, like we don't have to ignore all of that. We could just do it.
Oh, should we finally get to the split personality thing?
Oh,
that
I'm
we
sorry.
put a pin in?
We never did talk about that. Yeah. Well, I don't think that the idea at the end of the day is that he really actually has a split personality. I think it's that that's the defense his lawyer is making, and that partly through hearing that defense, he's realizing, and again, this feels like it's retconning the first movie to me.
Yes.
That there was never a Joker persona that or personality that was like it's neither a split personality nor his true self. It was all a lie he was telling to make himself happy. He thought he needed to be that so that he could get fame and adulation, and it worked. And so when he puts on the Joker outfit in court, which by the way I didn't buy for a minute that he was allowed to do that. When he puts that out on in court, although there is a little bit of satire and social commentary about big high profile trials that turn into circuses, like O.J. Simpson and stuff. And I like that some of that was poked at. We could have done more with it. But
yeah.
But anyway, when he does that, he's groping around trying to remember how to play the character. Was my read on it, where he's like he can't find the Joker now because he's been questioning whether that exists, and then when the Puddles guy takes the stand, like he really loses that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Where when I always felt like, oh, this is just what the defense attorney is trying to spin because she empathizes with him, she's representing him, and she does understand the tragedy and stuff that he's been through. But I thought like, oh, it's completely undoing the first movie. But I thought, oh, this is potentially interesting, just the ethics of that, like, when does because the idea is supposed to be that justice is blind. But in this case, well, not really. If you're trying to spin this narrative of a multiple personality disorder and that's all fake, I was like, okay, that could be cool. It goes nowhere. But like you said, what the movie decides at the end is no, he's not the Joker, and his persona completely crumbles, and he's just Arthur Fleck, and he's always been Arthur Fleck. So I had that similar experience with you, Cap. I never felt like the movie. And Connor's not the only person I've heard say this. I just never felt like the movie was trying to sell me that Arthur literally had a split personality.
Yeah, go ahead, Connor.
Well, see, like, and I think it's cool that you felt that way, because I wish I was having that experience. I should probably mention there are a couple of really cool character actors who show up. Steve Coogan shows up as a reporter, and Brendan Gleeson is just great in everything.
Yes.
And he's written this. But when it comes to like the thing though, is it's like I kind of, that's early on how I was feeling, is it was like, this is just something his defense attorney is trying to get him off on. But I'm like, part of me was like, why is she going for that route when like him being crazy and just not on his meds is literally what happened? And if you're trying to get him off of like, just like not going into prison,
I wondered about that too.
Like, he does belong in like, the insanity plea that does apply to him. Why are we doing this? But whatever. Okay, that's just the premise of your movie. But then I was like thinking about the cartoon at the beginning, where I'm like, so is that an in-universe thing, or is it like a fantasy he has, where like this is how he sees himself, that there are these two parts of him? I don't know. It's not really clear, and not that it needs to be clear necessarily, but if you play with that ambiguity, and but then it's like a lot of it. I feel like after a minute though, it's like he's like laughing and trying to bring the Joker out, and it's like the whole like him having that condition where he laughs uncontrollably. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's not even in this movie. Like anytime he is laughing, it's like he's deliberately trying to laugh, or like trying to like bring it out.
In the first movie, it's a lot clearer there's supposed to be like 4 different laughs with different like reasons they happen or motivations. And with this movie, it's a lot less clear as to what they are, and it's a lot fewer and farther between. And he doesn't seem to. Yeah, you're right, Connor. He doesn't seem to have that condition. There's that one moment when he's on the leash in the rain where I think he's got it again.
I think it's referenced like verbally by somebody once, but I don't remember. I feel like it's referenced like one time.
But I did feel like a lot of the thing of like there is no Joker, like the only way that plays like a narrative reveal or some kind of beat is if the movie believed it or he did or the movie was trying to convince me of it. And like I just like I've seen the movie Joker. I've seen it multiple times. I never once had that interpretation of it, and it felt like for a lot of the movie it was trying to convince me that that was a valid interpretation of that movie. And it's like not only that, I've heard nobody have that interpretation of the movie, and so it was like it feel like this weird way to try to spin recontextualizing the events of that movie, only for to pull the rug out from under you. But the rug was under nobody. Nobody. I personally never met anybody who had that interpretation, so that's why that bothered me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur himself all through the movie is completely pushing against the multiple personality idea to the point where he seems confused by it and like doesn't want to use it as a defense. And I think the idea is supposed to be that that by the middle of the movie he is seeing himself or trying to see himself still as full-on Joker. And the idea is more there's no Arthur Fleck and he's pretending to be Arthur Fleck. And then his realization, the self-discovery at the end of the movie is, no, it's backwards. Arthur Fleck was there all along, and I've just been pretending to be this persona that I really wanted, but was never like who I actually am. And that's where he discovers there's actually humanity in him. Is supposed to be the idea. It doesn't match the end of that last movie at all, but also the end of that last movie is at odds with itself, where it can't decide what he is.
Well, and then also I just remembered this. I feel like the way the movie's trying to convince you of this is that like all the musical numbers. I mean, it does kind of feel like a cynical way to just get him in Joker makeup for a lot of these movies. You can put it in trailers. But the other part of it, if you want to read a story motivated reason, is it's like there's this Joker persona in him, and it's confident, and he can dance, and he can do all this stuff, and it's like it's in him, it's in his mind. He's just trying to bring it out. Like there is that other him, there is his shadow that's in there, and I'm like, I don't believe you, movie. And then the movie says you shouldn't have believed us.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't mean to fight you, Connor, but that's the part of it. I mean, like I don't like it, but like all of that read okay to me. Where like once it be like I didn't know why it was happening in the moment, but when you get to I mean besides just surface level, when he gets out of here, he wants to be, full on Joker again, and he's hoping that he gets to do that with Harley Quinn, and he, he's fantasizing about the TV show and all of that. And then when you get to the end, and the theme becomes again personal fantasy, retroactively, it seems pretty clear to me that the idea is it's not that there's another personality; it's that that's who he wants to be. And so he keeps going back to that in his mind. If he can put the makeup back on, he can embody that, and that's who he can be. And the idea is he thinks that's the real him. So like where maybe it's convincing you is because you're buying into who he thinks he is. And then the idea at the end is he never was that guy. He's just trying. Like it's emulation.
Sure. Oh, you could be totally right. And if I on a rewatch, I could feel that way, because I will buy this movie on 4K and it will sit on my shelf.
Okay.
That's good with movie.
I just want you to get a feeling it sign that's red and set it right next to it, though. Like,
well, and again, I think at the end the idea is. Well, he's realized by the end, I don't want to be Joker. I want to be Arthur Fleck. And Harley fell in love with Joker, but I want to be Arthur Fleck with Harley and run off. And that's where their relationship is doomed and they can't be together forever. It's like, okay, I get that. Just you gotta flesh it out. Got to do
Yeah,
something with
and
that.
I guess the last thing I'll maybe say is there's like 3 different ideas for a sequel here. It's like they weren't lacking for ideas for a sequel. If you want to
Right.
do like a sort of Bonnie and Clyde, or with the musical Sid and Nancy, kind of like they break out of jail and go on the run, you can do that. You want to do the trial and also have Harley Quinn there, sure, you can do that.
Yeah,
You
I'm
want
with
to
you.
like just have it be set in Arkham, you can do that. And it's like it tries to do all of it, and then none of them get, I think, the room they deserve.
I agree.
And then weirdly also feels like there's no story and it's really thin and it needs to pad out time with musical numbers. Where it's like, how can both of those things be true? I guess because they didn't flesh any of it out.
Right.
Okay, I'll read these last super chats and we'll get going. W, $10, kind of looks like he's about to fall asleep. Sometimes we, the audience, are stupid and it's okay to treat us as such. Our society has supported the Venom franchise enough to justify a trilogy Ben Affleck.
I think
I
he has
agree.
a best.
Wait, is that supposed to be the audience? He's not trolling people that like Joker, but like the Venom audience? Is that...
Well, okay, at the very start of this, when you said this is the fourth live action Harley Quinn movie, I thought where were you going with that? This is the fourth-ish movie this year of a superhero movie without the superhero. It's not literally the fourth, but we have Madam Web, this, and then we have Venom and Kraven. Got a whole lot of
But that's
superhero
just
movies
because
this year
somehow
without the superhero.
Sony... This is what's so weird about it. Sony is winning the year for superhero movies in quantity. They won't win in any other way, okay? Everybody, don't get me wrong. They're winning the year. MCU only had 1. DC has got, what, 2? Or just Joker?
It's
It's
Joker.
just Joker.
Oh yeah, of course, because we haven't started the DC studio stuff yet, and then or the
We're not counting
DC
the Chris Reeve documentary.
U stuff, obviously, and then hilariously, that will be the end of that universe. They're chucking out the last 3 they have in 1 year, and then never again. Probably.
Thank God, it can't.
Probably.
It can't be over
I don't
soon
want to go
enough.
that far.
It can't be over soon enough. Like, please, God, let it be over.
I want you to be right.
If it keeps going, it's like somebody has always got to put out something that is making me feel like the DCEU still exists. It's like, just put it out of its misery already. Start over. Dubby. Oh no, we already read that hilarious super chat. Goofster, thanks for all the support tonight, guys. I really appreciate you. $10 super chat. What bothers me about this movie more than anything is it was apparently not focus tested and released while Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme were tossed to the side because they weren't good. I almost said that earlier when Connor brought up Zaslav. I was like, yeah, like this could have been Zaslav. This could have been written off for tax purposes. Can you imagine the alternate reality where this gets written off for tax purposes, gets destroyed, and then a print of it leaks like 20 years down the road? Can you just imagine where people would be like, "Oh my God, thank God it didn't come out"?
It would be. It would have been so funny.
Yeah, but this movie only happens because the first one made $1 billion. And obviously it's not this movie's fault that those movies were released. But yes, I don't like Zaslav, and I don't know why people were so excited about him for a minute. I haven't agreed with any of his decisions. But hopefully James Gunn pulls it off with his DCU. I'm looking forward to that next year. New beginning for DC. I'm looking forward.
I remember in the Discord, Doolittle, as he goes by on YouTube, he had said that David Zaslav looks like if Dash Parr from The Incredibles like grew up and became an evil businessman. And I cannot get that image out of my head. He looks so much like Dash. It's funny.
I saw that too. And again, like with that Batgirl movie, I'm not saying I think it was good. For all I know, like it was bad. But when they say, "Oh, this would have ruined the DC brand," I'm sorry, I don't believe them. It was a tax write-off, and I don't like that.
Yeah,
On principle, I'm very frustrated by that decision. And Coyote versus Acme, like, that whole thing sucks. And I'm very happy.
The last point I want to make real quick is, isn't it weird that there's this again. There's so much stuff in this that feels like a cosmic joke, and I can't decide how much of it is intentional. Right, where the Joker intentionally sabotages his own case, while Todd Phillips is intentionally sabotaging intentionally sabotaging like the legacy of his own first movie. Maybe not maybe he's delusional enough to think that this won't have an effect on that. Because I'm having a hard time telling even how that movie would have been remembered. And then now I think all bets are off. Like, I think this kind of ruins any potential legacy that movie had. I don't know if you guys agree with that. But then,
No, you're probably right.
because yeah, like there are bad sequels that I think are really easy to forget about, to write out to headcanon. That didn't happen. Most of them are not made by the same people and are very often like a lot more cheaply made and kind of B-movie-esque, that sort of thing, especially in like horror franchises. But something like this is kind of tougher because it's made by exactly the same or a lot of the same team. But like I think he also probably not is intentionally like is sabotaging his own career with this. It's like he's Arthur Fleck in his own movie. It's weird.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know how to make this point without completely derailing this conversation, but I'll be brief. I just think this reminded me of with what you just said about him sabotaging his own trial. I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of the Better Call Saul series finale, but that did it well and knew what they were doing with their character. With how that handles the Saul Goodman persona versus the Jimmy McGill persona. Spoiler alert for Better Call Saul. Sorry, but it's like, he has come to the realization by that point that he is Jimmy and Saul is a person that he doesn't want to be more, but he has to be put on that persona one last time to tank that trial. And I really like that show, and I just felt like making that comparison. I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah, and I mean that part of it's not. I don't think he handled horribly. It's more just. It's built on a faulty premise where it doesn't match your first movie and kind of on purpose,
Right, yeah.
so it's all weird. And secondly, the whole point of the first movie was to be a Joker origin, and this movie says nope. It took me 3 hours to get to that point, but
It was an origin.
But
You got the real Joker at the end.
yeah. And then this is like, no, psych. And then like it gets nothing to do in between, It's sort of like I've always complained with Rises, where like we do in Origin with Begins, and then Dark Knight kind of continues that, and then when you get to Rises, he didn't really get to fight very much of his rogues gallery before he leaves, except at least he actually went out and did some stuff, and there was 8 years in between. With this, it's like. He doesn't murder anyone, and he's the Joker. It's crazy.
I have never seen Cap so upset about a protagonist not murdering anyone in a movie, and it's wonderful.
Again, there's so many things that I want to complain about, and then I can kind of turn around and go, maybe that's the joke.
Yeah,
but it's not funny, even when you explain it. Anyway, we better get going. We're all gonna fall asleep. I don't know how we talked about this movie for 3 hours, but I appreciate you. Thank you guys for doing all this.
Of course.
Okay.
A lot of this discussion was fun, and then a lot of it was also tedious because this movie is tedious. And I just want to thank you guys for hanging on for the long haul. And this movie's irritating. Anyway.
Oh really? I thought it was pretty good.
Oh yeah? Are you gonna flip your sign back around?
Yeah, we've come around on it.
Yeah. It was
Oh
thumbs
man,
up.
Connor,
Yeah.
I had so many things I wanted to say that I forgot one of the big ones, because I really wanted to get in the Rob Zombie thing. But you know how I had like 5 different ways to open my sign flip, and you know what one of them was?
What's that?
Here's my review. It's better than the Crow remake.
Well, we can agree on that, certainly.
which is really comparable because of the plot in that with the main character falling in love with a woman in a psych ward. Like they're actually doing some of the same things.
Like a good
That's
double
true.
feature.
Oh my god.
Although that movie would make a lot more sense as a musical because
Yeah.
ostensibly they
did freaking no music in that.
It's so weird. Yeah.
It's funny you say that though, because you didn't like that movie, but that didn't seem to insult you or make you as angry as this movie is, just based on your reviews. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to leave the entire time I was watching.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
Most of the time I was watching The Crow. With this one, like, it did hold my attention. Like, I was wondering if it could like thread the needle, if it could like come to some kind of conclusion. The last 20 minutes, I'm like, all right, okay.
It's different when you start lame and then you're just watching a lame thing versus a movie that I was kind of with that then goes no psych, and then basically like shoots me in the head. Like that's what this experience was.
You get what you deserve.
Yeah, apparently.
Can I say one last thing? I'll keep this very brief, just because it's
as long as it doesn't have anything to do with that and this and The Crow is a double feature. Like when you said that, I quit my job. Like,
oh, that's wonderful. Nicholas Bodo brought this up, and I've seen some people say this too, where it's like, well, why do you think that the Penguin is being well regarded and this isn't? Aren't they doing similar things? I think the Penguin is much more comparable to the first movie. I think this is more comparable to the first movie in that it's this very dark, serious thing that's riffing on a lot of crime dramas. That movie's just a lot more overt with its references and the things it's lifting. And with the Penguin, what we have at least is a really good character study. And they're very similar. They have similar tones, and again are looking at a lot of the same things. Just at least 3 episodes of the Penguin, it's not too overt, like, oh, this is just derivative of, people are making the Sopranos comparisons, but doesn't feel derivative, not yet. And again, I still like that first Joker movie. I'm speaking for other people, but with this movie, it's like that this is a completely different animal. This is getting metatextual.
Yeah, I mean, are we comparing them just because they're both like things about Batman villains, and they're both dark, and they're both crime
they're gritty,
things?
they're realistic.
Okay.
They got similar vibe. Again, I'm talking more about the first Joker movie to the Penguin and that stuff. But I think they have similar vibes. Again, I
don't have that. I don't agree with you on that. I mean, like they're both dark and gritty, certainly. But I think you have to compare the kinds of stories they're telling. Like one of them is psychological thriller, and the other one is more traditional gangster thing. And so because I kept seeing that comment, and I didn't mean to ignore you, Nicholas Bodo, but I just kept thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know I don't know how to respond to that. Like, he's like, because what he was actually asking, Robert, is this Penguin just done, or is Penguin this just done better? No, it's not, because this is. And I mean, like, looking at both of these movies, it's a psychological thriller about a like damaged antisocial guy that, like, I have a hard time even understanding how his psychology works. The Penguin, like who he is and what he's about is obvious from the beginning, and he's also not crazy. And if the Joker was better, they would be kind of interesting companion pieces, right? Because you're dealing with like the ultimate Arkham inmate and a guy that does not belong there. So like they could be cool mirror things. But I get one of these characters, and the other one I don't.
Oh, for sure. And Taxi Driver, again, which is one of the main things Joker's riffing on, it is certainly a psychological thriller, but at least to me, like, it still fits in that Scorsese crime genre. All that's mixed together for me, so that's where maybe I just feel more of the comparison to, like Taxi Driver and Goodfellas are very different movies, but to me, they're just kind of part of the same thing, as opposed to something like King of Comedy, which is very different, and also what Joker's looking at a lot. So,
but see, I actually see Taxi Driver and King of Comedy as a lot more related things than what you're talking about, because of the types of character studies they are.
Okay. No, that makes
but
sense.
I don't want to get in the weeds with this. We got to get going. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Connor, do you have any brilliant final thoughts for us?
No, it's pretty good. Go see it. See it in IMAX. Go see it in IMAX.
Connor wants to do the Crow double feature.
Maybe if I saw this in D-Box, it would have been better. My theater was showing this in D-Box, and I almost...
If only you could have experienced that explosion with Harvey Dent maybe losing his face in D-Box.
I want to go to the 4DX where they blow smoke in your face.
Yes!
Make it a triple feature with The Crow and Borderlands. There we go.
Oh, God.
We've done it.
We'll see you later, folks. Thanks for watching. I was Captain Logan. We had Connor Nielsen. We had Robert Wild. See you later, folks.